about 6 months we lived in the caravan. The business had gone to the extent that we now had to rent the house out because they couldn't afford the mortgage and we had to live in a caravan.
Wow.
All the way through to that business was turning over £500 million a year at one point.
There's two kinds of risk here, what I call where you got massive upside but minimal downside. So you might lose 10% if it doesn't work out. Then there's what's called death line risk, and death line risk is where
Have you heard about the FIRE number?
No.
So FIRE is financial independence, retire early, right?
Okay.
So that's what it stands for.
Right.
So everybody should have a FIRE number, right? So then that becomes generational wealth. You can then hand that down through a trust to your kids.
But most people don't even sit down and work out what that is, right?
Exactly.
I'm guilty of this. I struggle with that maths equation piece. I'm numbers dyslexic.
Dyslexia is a blessing to the world.
Well, it's a
Dyslexia is
superpower. It is.
And they're problem solvers, right? And they're deal makers and they get stuff done.
I actually think technology is helping dyslexic people.
Oh, find those important things to feed the AI.
Yeah.
That's the skill set of the future.
And that disruption is scaring a lot of people.
It's scaring a lot of people who realise that their brilliance is by...
Let's just touch on your short time at The Apprentice, or when you did that. Firstly, why? Why go on The Apprentice?
We sold 4.2 million in 24 hours.
That's £1 million tip though, right there. Don't walk past that, because that's £1 million tip. One of your superpowers is systemising and scaling stuff, right? Where should they start looking at either outsourcing or systemising?
The important thing we talk about is that have a 13-week cycle. So if you're thinking about
there's no way you have scaled to 150 plus people without incredibly good recruitment systems.
Yeah, exactly. If anyone wants to know where to start, well, it all starts there.
Hang on a second, I need to ask you something quick. What are most people getting wrong about LinkedIn?
Most people don't realise that
if you can't do half an hour a day to build your LinkedIn profile, how in the world do you expect to be successful at anything else? Welcome along to this episode of the Grown Up Business Podcast. This is for you if you are an entrepreneur and you really want to understand how to scale fast, if you want to understand how to exit businesses, if you also really want to know the secrets and go behind the curtain to what it really takes to win on LinkedIn in 2024 and 25, what it's really going to take to do that and how you can create an avalanche of leads off LinkedIn, how you can do that. And then today's show is exactly what you've been waiting for. So super excited to have Richard Woodsby in the show. Thanks, man, for being here. You are an award-winning 3 times bestseller, right? Which is awesome. Keynote speaker, investor. You've built and sold 3 businesses.
Yep.
You're also the creator of LinkedIn for Breakfast, which is a massive community. One of your books is called The $1 Million Sprint, which we're going to talk about that. And not only that, in the last 12 to 14 months, you've taken your latest business and built it and scaled it from 1 person to 100 people.
It's 154 now.
154. Well, that is insane. Absolutely insane. So we definitely want to talk about that, because I think one of the biggest blocks for people when they're building businesses is how to scale teams, right? Especially in service-based businesses, that becomes a real challenge, right? So clearly you've kind of cracked the code on that. Plus, you were at one point in your career on The Apprentice, which, I don't think you won it though, right? You didn't, you got close.
No, I got close.
You got
Very
close.
close.
Very close, yeah. Right? So it's a real interesting experience, I'm sure we can chat about. So let me ask you a question. First of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Secondly, when did you know you were an entrepreneur or that you weren't going to be an employee?
I think it's a really interesting question. So when I was younger, I grew up in an entrepreneurial household. My dad set up his business with his brother, and my brother and I were really close together. And so we used to go see him in his office and see him with his staff, and he had an oil distribution business. So he had a big yard and big oil tankers, and it was in the 80s, so there was oil all over the floor and nobody cared about the environment and all the rest of it. And it was just had this kind of smell and this aura and this sort of vibrance to it. And
right.
And I just don't know whether or not I knew that I had an entrepreneur in me, or I just saw it as being, I want this.
Right.
This is what I want. And he had I remember we bought this new oil terminal, and he came in.
He bought an oil terminal.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's quite a story. And we went in. There was this big open office in there, and I was like, "Oh, who works in here, Dad?" And he's like, "Well, that's where the telesales team works." I was like, "Oh, wow, okay, that's cool." And then we went down this aisle, and there was this little office in here, and he said, I was like, oh, "Who works in there?" And he says, "Oh, that's where Jan, my secretary, works." I was like, "Oh, okay, great." And he opened this door, and went in there. There's this massive room in there with a big sofa and these views out. And he said, "Who works in there?" And he was like, "That's my office." And I was like, I want the office. That's
the
what
vision. He gave you a vision at that point.
And I still remember it now. Actually, it's quite nice. I haven't even had that. You know, when you have a memory you haven't gone back to for a little while.
Yeah.
That's like that. And so I was very lucky. I still am very lucky to have such an amazing entrepreneur to kind of see the highs and lows. So like all these things, and I could spend this whole podcast talking about his story because it's fascinating. That we had sometimes about 6 months we lived in a caravan because the business had gone to the extent that we now had to rent the house out because they couldn't afford the mortgage, and we had to live in a caravan.
Right.
All the way through to that business was turning over £500 million a year at one point. Now,
wow,
it's oil. So
big order values.
But amazing business.
That's a roller coaster, isn't it?
Massive roller coaster. And also a ridiculously entrepreneurial roller coaster because at the weekends, we would go to the skydiving center, which he had brought as a side hustle.
It was as a side hustle. Who buys a skydiving center?
Well, because he wanted to be able to expense his skydiving jumps.
Okay, all right.
He'd done over 1,000 skydiver jumps.
Seriously.
He's a nutter. My childhood was spent on oil terminals and drop zones, watching either Dad kind of in his, working with his team, or watching him fall from the sky. And it was amazing. Yeah, that was our childhood. Yeah, we take the caravan we ended up living in down to Thruxton, and as kids we'd be running around the drop zone and watching all the skydivers. It was brilliant.
So he clearly had a massive appetite for risk.
Yes.
Did you inherit that, or do you think, is it a nurture versus nature? Do you think seeing that made you okay with risk, or did you have naturally an appetite for risk?
Naturally an appetite for risk. He was a classic kind of, it was from council estate where they lived the upstairs house, and the downstairs house was the downstairs part of a two bed up and down house was a terraced house, was grandparents downstairs, him and his parents upstairs. So that's where they lived,
right?
In Hounslow, all the way through to he bought his house from the Queen. And so I knew.
He bought his house from the Queen.
Yeah, so it was Fergie's old house, which is probably a bad thing to say now, isn't it? I haven't thought of that.
That's mad, but I just think that's a hilarious story. It's like, oh yeah, my dad bought his house from the Queen. And you're like, I'm sorry, what?
Funny.
It is, but from Hounslow to wherever that was.
I know. Like it was.
What a journey.
If you go see this house, it's one of those really tiny, narrow, houses in the back streets of Hounslow.
Right.
Terrible, all the way through to this. I mean, amazing. I told you I could literally spend the whole time. So risk was always part of it, but this was, for me, you seeing that and knowing that you have to go and do stuff. So we saw the struggle, and I'm so pleased, by the way,
right?
That through this, we had those caravan moments.
Yeah.
We had those, because if it was all sunshine and rainbows,
it's not a story.
It's not risk anymore, is it?
No.
Because you're everything you do, every decision you make turns to gold. So you would grow up in a household where you would just, you'd probably have self-confidence, which would be good, but you would probably be overly confident that...
But you get ego. The danger is if you don't... So my experience of this is, I'm a great believer in, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you.
Exactly.
First thing. Secondly, if all you do is win, firstly, you don't learn as much, because when you're winning, you don't learn, right? It's when you get hurt, when you get knocked down, when you get beaten up, that's when you stop and you go, okay, that didn't work, that hurt, I need to pay attention to that. And that's what keeps you humble, in my opinion. If you start winning too much, and you see this with pro athletes, you see this with sort of people who have, I had a client once, and he launched a business, scaled it, sold it for 20 million, whatever, really fast, very young. But the ego then became the problem, because he was just like, well, I know everything. And I've literally seen a client of mine in the last 2 or 3 years who's moved to a different part of the world, and he's just walking around now thinking he's cracked it. And actually, he just hasn't had that hit yet. You're going to get a hit. If you're in the entrepreneurial game, you're going to get a hit.
Yeah.
He's 35 and he's done brilliantly, but he's now at a stage where, his ego's now getting in the way because he's like not listening to anybody, thinks he knows it all. And there's a time limit then before you at some point get caught out by something, right? That's market will shift. You'll get the stuff will move on you. And it's that stay humble, stay hungry, stay in a mode of always be learning, right? Like always be learning. It's like, and I think, what's interesting about that for me is that, my dad grew up sort of not far from our house, actually, just down the road. And I think sometimes it's the business model that you pick, but you remember the times when you didn't have much. Like, I remember the family holidays when we'd go to Wales, sit on the beach in the rain. And, my mum insisted on us having a holiday and going to the beach, even if it was incredibly cold and raining, we would still do that. And at the time, horrible. It really was, right? But now you look back and go, actually, that's the stuff I remember. Yeah. They're the moments that stick with you, right? Like, when my mum ended up sellotaping the carpet on the stairs because it had got that thin. And you look back and go, and at the time it was a real, no, things aren't good here, are they? But then you look back on it and go, actually, that's the roller coaster. Yeah. And I think if you're going to play the entrepreneurial game and you're going to build a grown-up business, you need to learn to ride the emotions of that, right?
100%. And if you are not, if you are always riding on wins, you tend to stack bigger and bigger bets on yourself.
That's a good point, yeah.
And the issue is that one of those bets won't come off. And if you've bet the farm, then suddenly you then back to zero again. And that's one of the other things that I've been very cautious and ensured as I've gone through my journey is, one, I've exited businesses at the right time, even though it's not one of them, for example, wasn't a vast amount of money, but it was just the right time. And it was good to take some of the cash and the hard-earned time off the table, stick it in the bank, and then secure that wealth, right. And then have that wealth working on its own, because that's the thing that I don't see enough entrepreneurs do is that, great example. I was working with these lovely two guys who had this travel company before COVID. I was coaching them, and they went from 87k turnover for the year when I first started with them to 4.2 in 2 years. Like,
nice growth.
Great growth,
great scale,
great fun. And they got ads right. Like it was also skill based, right? So they'd done really well. They got data. We built all these dashboards for them. We helped them to kind of start their ads journey, and they just got it and they went for it, and it just went really, really fast. And it might have been 3 years actually to get up to 4.2, I think. Anyway, COVID happens, of course, no travel.
Game over.
Travel business. Yeah. And so the whole thing went down. And through the journey, I kept on saying to them, you need to start siphoning and taking some money out yourself, because they just weren't paying themselves. They're paying themselves sort of, the sort of money 20-year-olds would normally have, because they were kind of conscious what their friends were earning that much. They felt that they would have just a little bit more. I was like, guys, you need to siphon some of this wealth into your personal accounts and make that money do its work. If you keep on reinvesting it, if something changes, then you are literally back to zero, if not minus, if you're putting personal guarantees on, etc.
Yep.
Which I never advise people to do.
But you can insure. I mean, the only time you should ever do that, in my opinion, is if you insure them, because you can insure them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if you have to, if this is the thing, it amazes me that a lot of entrepreneurs don't know this, but it's if you have to have a guarantee, a personal guarantee, which I would agree with you, don't. If you can avoid it, right? However, if there's two kinds of risk here. One's what I call like where you got massive upside but minimal downside. Like you might lose 10% if it doesn't work out. Then there's what's called death line risk, and death line risk is where the upside could be 100, but if it goes wrong, you're out of the game.
Yeah.
And I've seen 2 or 3 people over my career who have been, and they'll say it, they got greedy because the upside was so big, they sunk everything into it, and then guess what? They got wiped out and they went back to zero. And somebody I coached who sold their business, was 35, was worth a lot, put it all on black basically, with no downside protection, which is insane. It came up red. He's now back working in a car dealership. And like to go mentally from being financially independent and but that was greed. It got triggered by greed, right? And that's death line risk. And death line risk is the one risk I coach people to avoid, because it doesn't matter how good the upside is. Your number one job is to stay in the game.
Yeah.
First goal is stay in the game. Second goal is to win the game enough that you can start taking money out of the business and protecting yourself, because market shifts. COVID was a good example of that. Technology at the moment with AI shifts. Suddenly you're relevant now, but you might not be relevant in 2 years' time. So, and valuation, I think this is something that valuation is very, very fragile. You could be worth, we had Ben on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about how he wanted to sell his business and his team talked him out of it. And he reckoned the valuation on that business went down 20 times in the year between when he wanted to sell it and when he actually sold it, because he waited a year and the market moved. And it's like, valuation isn't permanent, and it's like, you can get caught out by that. So I think I was a great believer in get clients to write down what's the number that if someone came along and offered you it, put it in an envelope, put it in a drawer, put it in a safe. If someone offers you that number, you'd be happy to walk away with. Because what happens is, and I've seen this happen, somebody I know had a business, and I hadn't coached them, but I know them. They got offered 35 million and turned it down. And they went, I think we're worth 39. I was okay, what are you going to do with the extra 4? And then they didn't do the deal, and the market did move on them. It was property back in 2008, and the business went literally down to about 500K.
Yeah.
And that value disappeared in 9 months. And you go, you've got to get really clear on goal number one is like, what do you need to take off the table to secure yourself and your family? That should be goal number one, right?
It's kind of this concept. Have you heard about the FIRE number?
No.
So FIRE is financial independence, retire early, right?
Okay.
So that's what it stands for.
Nice.
So everybody should have a FIRE number, right? And so you can go and have a look at it. It's got loads on Reddit and stuff like that around your FIRE number. And so if you know what the number is,
right,
that means that you can then live based upon the interest that you would have. Say you put it into sort of the S&P 500 and it was on an interest of say 7%.
Yep.
Whatever that 7% is month on month is your income amount. So if you could live just on that 7% income on your balance that you've got in the markets, then that makes you, to coin Jason Greystone, the financial freedom. You will become financially free. You never have to work again, and you would never tuck into your balance. So say I think it's something like 3.5 million would give you 15 grand a month or something like that. So say you had 3.5 mil in the markets, 15 grand a month, that's what you would live off, and you would never touch the 3.5 mil. So then that becomes generational wealth. You can then hand that down for a trust to your kids. Your kids can live off 15 grand a month. And that'd be nice, 15 mil a month. We could do that.
15 mil a month. That'd be
a big FIRE number.
Really, could be
3.5 billion. But
that's a lot.
It's a lot of money. It's a lot. But if you do that, so if someone came around to you now and says, right, 3.5 mil for your business, you would have to seriously consider it, because you would never need to work again. Never need to work in. But actually what most entrepreneurs go, well, I'll wait until I have my exit of 3.5 mil to be able to put my FIRE number behind, and then I could live off that. And that's not what FIRE, the concept's all about, because actually FIRE's about building up towards it. So keep on putting deposits into this, keep on investing in your FIRE number. As I say,
but most people don't even sit down and work out what that is, right?
Exactly.
But I think there's a step also before that, which is what kind of lifestyle do you want to live? So, a person that I work with, and they're a brilliant financial planner and modeler, and he always says there's a big difference between saying, I want to get on a plane and turn left and go on 3 5-star holidays a year, and each of those holidays costs 30,000 to 50,000 or 100,000. You're going to need a different level of investment income. Or if you want a new car every year, but that car is £100,000 car, versus if you don't really care too much about cars and you just want a new car every 3 years, and you're happy with a mid-range BMW, or let's be honest, it's probably likely now to be a mid-range or top-range Chinese import, the way things are going. So, but you need to work out what is the lifestyle you want as well, so then you can work out the money. But I think I'm guilty of this. I struggle with that maths equation piece. I don't know if you're probably different, but I'm dyslexic, but I'm numbers dyslexic. More like I struggle with the math bit of that. It just, I don't, my brain just finds, if you show me a spreadsheet, I literally will have a seizure and go, I can't process this, right? My brain just doesn't know how to deal with numbers that way.
And that's a massive problem. That's a massive problem within a lot of the entrepreneurial community, and particularly within the more creatives, the agencies, even sort of the coaching, the people. Yeah. That's the thing. Now, luckily, I'm the complete opposite. Like, I can barely spell my own name, but I did a business with entrepreneurship degree. I can't spell the word entrepreneurship.
It's a hard word to spell, actually. It's actually a hard word to spell.
I got a 2-1 for my degree and I can't even spell it. So it's brilliant.
Yeah, but don't worry about that. Brian was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he couldn't read or write by the time he was 30, and he still made £1 million by the time he was 26. So, it's really interesting sometimes, I think, the skill that we get told we should have versus the skill that actually works in the real world.
Exactly.
Not always the same thing.
And I think that comes in just talking about, the degree, etc. Is that, one of the things that I did there was where I wrote a dissertation on, is there a link between entrepreneurship and dyslexia? And so that was my dissertation. Actually, I got a first for that dissertation. They actually put it in the library at my university, which was kind of my big kind of, pat on the back moment. Now, the irony is the first pass was just spelt completely bad. I think they've probably given me a bit of a blessing because they're like, oh, this guy clearly is dyslexic, so we'll glaze over the fact it's all spelt wrong. It looks like he's written it with his left hand as well, but it's good. But the whole link between that is that actually back before entrepreneurship was invented, which is only about 50 years old, and the thesis of entrepreneurship, it's up in Scotland. A professor kind of noted it and kind of diagnosed a child for it, and then since then it's kind of become
really
part of. Yeah, it's only recent that it's actually become a thing, right? The old kind of what were the dyslexics doing before there was a word for dyslexic? And they were the kind of the Barrow boys. They were the guys down the docks who were doing the kind of the deals, the wheeler dealers, right? And so we've always talked about wheeler dealers as they kind of like, well, maybe we'll do this. They're problem solvers, right? And they're deal makers and they get stuff done. Whereas you had the elite, which is very much kind of the Eton, Cambridge, go into the professional services. We all talk about the education system being the sort of Victorian kind of hangover, and it's true because it's been built around the elites who weren't dyslexic, who went up to become solicitors and accountants and politicians, etc.,
lawyers and all that.
Exactly, and so the system's been built to produce those type of people. But as entrepreneurs, even in school, right? So when I was taught maths in the classics way, I had to try and think about it and actually work it in my logic of how I'd actually work it out and then come to the answer. And I still got to the answer because actually, for me, I get interested in, I'm not like a numbers interested person, but I know it's a means to the end. So I was always kind of okay on that front. And the numbers side, so you have to problem solve. You have to think outside the box. You have to do things a bit differently,
right? And
that's what we've always had to do in the education side. So when you come about and you go into business, and even when people go into their first, even if they're entrepreneurs sitting underneath the surface and they go to their first kind of normal job, someone will say, right, you just need to do that. And the classic kind of neurotypical will just follow the process, right? Because that's what they've been asked for. Whereas the entrepreneur will be sitting there just going, it just doesn't make sense doing it like that. Why would you do it like that? Like, I can just get it done quicker if I do it like this.
Why would I not do that?
And then, of course, the person that does it not the way they were told to do it gets in trouble, doesn't progress so well in their job.
Gets told they're wrong or lazy, which is the other thing.
And you go, well, this job stuff's ridiculous, and then they go, well, these guys seem to be making loads more money and this guy seems to be owning this business and I think I could do this better because I already know that all their processes are completely ridiculous. And so they go do it themselves because they were told they were wrong. They told they couldn't do it that way, but yet they knew somewhere underneath there was something there that wasn't quite right that they could do better. And that's always been the case. And so dyslexia is a blessing to the world. Dyslexia is a superpower.
It is.
And without it, we wouldn't have Branson. We wouldn't have Jamie Oliver. We wouldn't have. So this is one of the things that I love. And I wrote about this in my thesis. The Sydney Opera House, right?
Right.
Dyslexic architects who came up with the concept, right? And so what he did is he looked at a sphere, which is the most perfect thing for audio, to be able to have the most enriched sound because it bounces off all the different curves and fills a sphere with sound, right? So it's the inside of a ball, right? And so he unpeels the ball like an orange to be able to create the right sound because he wanted the sound to be at the one side to be able to then pull it into the kind of auditorium where people are watching it. And so he's in his mind, he's kind of peeled the Sydney Opera House out of a orange.
Okay.
And that's where it comes. And it's only could be, he couldn't write, he couldn't do his own drawings. He had to have people to do it all. But he was a famous architect because he could conceptually see things and actually see how they would work. And hence Sydney Opera House was born because of dyslexia, because of thinking differently about things. And it's just, there's so many examples of that, you know. And I one of the things that I love about Jamie Oliver's books, you can see the dyslexia come through all his published cookbooks, because if you look at sort of Mary Berry, it's like 2.5 ounces of this, 3, exactly 3 of this, etc. Whereas Jamie Oliver's like a handful of this, some of that, slap it in there, job done.
He did it all on audio, didn't he? His first book that was a bestseller, he recorded it back on a voice dictator thing because he couldn't literally write. And I think that's what I love about that, is that entrepreneurs find a way to get to the solution, even if it's not the traditional way. It's just you have to be okay with not being normal, not being like everybody else. Not necessarily like my son got into trouble at school because he's very good at numbers. He can just see patterns, right? Like he can see, and he gets to the answer really fast. And he was in a maths test, I think, and he just got to the answer. And the teacher said to him, "Well, show me how you work that out." And he was like, "I can't." And they're like, "Well, you cheated then." And he's like, "No, I didn't. I just worked it out in my head." And they're like, "You can't possibly have worked that out in the head. You need to show me your workings on a piece of paper." He's like, "I honestly can't show you it because I just saw the pattern and go, that, yeah, the answer's that." And the teacher could not get their head around the fact that he could do that in his head, but he couldn't write it down. And I'm like, trying to explain to the teacher, I'm trying to have a conversation with the teacher. It's like, does it really matter if you got the answer right? Surely that's what we're going for. No, you need to be able to show you've got understanding of how it worked. I'm like, well, what if he's a genius and he just saw it like, what you're gonna go, "Look, I'm sorry, you don't know how this works." Well, he clearly does, because he got the answer. And the assumption was he was just cheating. And I'm like, he wouldn't know how to do that, because he's just not. It wouldn't even occur to him to try and look at someone else's stuff.
It makes me laugh. You get 1 point for getting it right, 1 point for showing you working. It's like, if I showed you my working, I have to tell you about the squirrels I was thinking about halfway through.
That wouldn't work. That wouldn't work.
I was like tumbling down rabbit holes, and then suddenly it happened, and boom.
Yeah. So I think, it's interesting because obviously you're a big fan of LinkedIn, and LinkedIn has now given a specific superpower that you can tag on your profile as being dyslexic. I've got it on mine. You can actually put it, and it is actually a skill set, and it's being recognized, and so you can actually say that, right? And I put it on the bottom of all my emails, which says, so it says, expect great ideas but poor spelling, just because I remember having the second coaching client I ever worked with in Oxford, and back then the model used to be we'd give people a very long report. We'd do the first strategy session and we'd give them like this 30-page report. And I remember going to see him. His name was Alexander, and really nice guy. And I remember going, and he had printed this out, and he had gone through it and ringed all the spelling in red that was wrong. And I remember it being a real assault on my identity about whether I was actually any good at this. And then I sat there and I listened to him, and he basically was telling me how terrible I was and my spelling was awful and all this sort of stuff, and I'd misspelled business in it and all kinds of stuff. And I just remember sitting there thinking, I've got to be very careful here, because if I own his assessment of me, I'm going to struggle for a very long time with this career. And I just said to him, are you wanting me to help you learn how to spell, or are you asking me to teach you how to grow a business? Which one are we doing? I said, because if you want a coach who's a brilliant speller and doesn't know how to, scale a business, then I'm the wrong guy for you. But it was I remember that was a real challenge for me, and it messed me up for a good 3 or 4 weeks, where I didn't actually sell anybody for a good month, because I was terrified I would then have to do another report. And then I remember having a conversation with my coach at the time, and she just said to me, "Well, what would you rather do?" And I was like, "I'd just rather create a mind map or a plan that's visual for people to see, rather than a massively big document." Now, obviously today, great. Now you'd record the whole conversations. AI would transcribe it, come up with all the notes. Those kind of challenges I actually think technology is helping dyslexic people.
Oh,
do you?
Crikey, what would you rather be now, dyslexic or neurotypical? Because if you really think about
it, question,
why would you ever want to be wired in a way that is being trained to just be the B team for AI? You're all you do is you just know all the information, you're able to recite it. Well, that's already done.
Yeah.
You need to be able to think differently, prompt in different ways, and be creative and be personable. And actually, suddenly, the tables just haven't just kind of leveled for the right side, the creative side of the brain that is going to be able to find those important things to feed the AI.
Yeah,
that's the skill set of the future.
I think that's really interesting, because I think you're right. And that disruption is scaring a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. It's scaring a lot of people who realize that their brilliance is by being able to recite parts of the law.
Yes.
Or their brilliance is being able to crunch the numbers accurately.
Yep.
It's done.
Yeah.
Like the difference now is going to be, how do we find new and innovative concepts, and how do we find creativity, and actually what do we do with our lives when actually most of the stuff is getting done for us? How do we have small, sharp bits of work and then breaks? And yeah, that kind of ADHD, like how, you're working on multiple things all the same time and getting distracted with stuff, like that's okay. Like that's what the future is going to start to be. So actually these kind of skills, superpowers, are going to be really useful for young people coming through.
I think it's interesting, because talking about the young people stuff then. So let's just touch on like your short time at The Apprentice, or when you did that. Like, firstly, why go on The Apprentice? Like, because like let's bust a few myths. Firstly, I don't think it's a business show. I just think it's an entertainment show, right? It's not really like, because business. The thing that's always challenged me with The Apprentice, right, is, for me, I've been a fan of I'll be honest, I was a fan of the show in the US more than in the UK for a while. But the thing about the concept for me that I was challenged was like, right, you want these people to be entrepreneurs, but they've all got to learn to work in a team. And I'm like, my experience of entrepreneurs is they're not very good team players. They're really good team leaders, but they're not very good team players, right? So why'd you go on?
Well, when I went on, it was 2015.
Right.
So there was no TikTok and there was no Instagram, or there was very little of it. It was when Twitter was the primary platform, right? So sort of take yourself back to there. So it wasn't, the world was still led by tabloids, and there wasn't the same kind of celebrity. There's celebrity culture, but it wasn't the same reality TV.
It wasn't on the
culture.
Social media steroid, was it?
Exactly.
Right.
So when the reason why I went on it, so the kind of the music went, and I was walking through my lounge and I said, God, these bloody idiots, they're no good at business. Like when you just say, God, if I was to do so much better than that, they're all so arrogant, etc. And my wife goes, well, if you think you're so clever, why don't you go and do it then? And of course, because I am an arrogant idiot, I was like, well, fine then, I am going to do it then. Never in a million years did I think I'd get in, but something like sort of 80,000 people, apply for it back then. I'm not sure how many people do now, but that's how it was, in and around that number for us. And when you turn up, you think, they say, we'd like to offer you an audition, an interview, right? I go, okay, great. So you kind of get your tie clip on and your hanky with the same color as your tie, and your suit and your socks that are the same color and everything. You got to get yourself walking out, and you go, right, I'm going to go nail this interview. And you come around the corner, and suddenly it's you go into this massive like foyer, and it's just these lines of people, like they're lining up at a theme park. So many people, like at X Factor, you see the auditions like that. I didn't think it was going to be like that, and of course in X Factor, everybody's got the big hair, big shoulder pads and stuff. When I went around the corner, everybody had the matching kind of tie and like hanky. I was like, oh God, I'm not going to stand out here at all. But you go through, and it's in Tottenham Court Road, and there's it's a big office building, and you go through these three levels. And the first level, you've got to kind of say why you want to be on The Apprentice. And I'm just trying to remember if I can remember what I said. I say something along the lines of, I'm a walking, talking business in a suit. I've got a business plan to die for. I've got something like the passion of a Frenchman and the drive of a German.
Did you prep this?
And the stiff upper lip of an English gentleman. So I said, yeah, I did. I was like, because I did some research online. I knew someone had gone to it, so I knew what was happening. And it was awful. So like literally puke in a bucket. But that's like catnip for them. They loved it because of course that's like this guy. he's going to be a complete idiot. We need to bring him through to the next round. But you go up, and then one of them, it's like speed dating lots of people on the interview. They do lots of small little interviews in like this room of speed dating. And at each stage, you can get kicked out, and they say, and they'll give you the door when you're doing these auditions. And so I managed to get through, and the final one's like a mock boardroom where I put my business plan. And the nice thing for me is that my business plan was the business that I was doing. I came out of university and I set up one business. I lost that business. I'm happy to talk about that at some point if you want. And then the second business was my marketing agency. And so I was working on that marketing agency. And at that stage, I was starting to write a book around actually how I see a marketing agency working and a business growth position. Okay. And the apprentice came in, I was like, great, I've got kind of like a business plan here already.
Right.
So when they brought me into the boardroom, I was like, bam, 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 bam. I was like firing all cylinders. And they were like, great, you go through to the next piece. And the last round is on the fourth floor. They do an interview and they talk to you. So we've just had a whole day of interviews, and they ask you, what would happen if you win The Apprentice? And I'm talking about, well, I'd go buy an island. I'd call it Dickie's World. And the problem is that
was that because you didn't think you were going to win at that stage?
I didn't think I was even going to get on. So I'm talking about Dickie's Island and having this great fun fair on this island and the rest of it. And of course, when they get the phone call and went on The Apprentice, that's the thing they lead with.
Yeah.
And then we're talking about, and then everybody's like, oh, Dickie's Island. I was like, oh God, what happened? And everybody's like, what happens on Dickie's Island? I was like, oh God.
Not good. That clip doesn't date well, does it?
No,
really?
It doesn't. It's still there. It's got loads of views as well, which is very embarrassing. So if you type my name,
don't go look for it.
Don't do that. But the interesting thing for me is you wait to get this phone call from them, and they phone you to say, we'd like you to go on to The Apprentice. And I'm like, yes. Yes. And they say, and we're going to pick you up in a black car in 2 weeks. And then in 2 weeks' time, they literally take you and you're away for 3 months.
Is it 3 months of
3
filming?
months doing it.
Wow.
2 days before the car came to get me, Cara walks in, my wife, with a pregnancy test going, I'm pregnant. And I'm like, and I'm like, well, I'm off. Sorry. Ooh. Enjoy that. Ooh. And so the 3 months, the bit where all the morning sickness and stuff is there. And you get you don't see them, you get 1 10-minute phone call a week home, right? So, and they listen
tough. Is that tough?
It is tough. It is tough. And it's obviously a massively like ups and downs, and the pressure they put you under, and the whole kind of fatigue, and the fact that your phone does go off and you only have 20 minutes and all that sort of stuff.
Do they, they obviously intentionally fatigue you, right?
Oh, 100%. Like, right. We hadn't had to go and do a thing that the first day we got there at midnight, went to bed at midnight, and then 2 o'clock in the morning, the phone's going off. We're off to Billingsgate Market to go buy fish. I've had 2 hours sleep and I'm buying fish in a market. I'm like, but it was,
which is not real life, is it? Really? Let's be honest.
Well,
it might be. To be fair, sometimes I've
cracked the hours.
But sometimes the other day I had a bunch of stuff I needed to do for clients. I was just prepping for my F12 mastermind. I think I got 4 hours sleep, but I wouldn't want to do that consistently. I could do it for, I know how to recover from that really well, but I know that if I do that, I'm going to have a sleep debt I've got to repay by the end of the week, right? Yeah. Or something. But like 3 months of that is how did you mentally, like, what were your strategies to just mentally get through that? Like, how did you kind of?
One is that you're in your 20s, which is very useful for getting through that.
Yeah, true. You can do. Body is
that's ready
true.
To go.
Yeah,
and I think that's the right mantra to give people who want to be entrepreneurs in their 20s, because now you shouldn't do that. I'm in my 40s now, and that would be wrong. And I would put my foot down. I wouldn't go through that much fatiguing, because I just wouldn't be able to operate and my body wouldn't be right. And that's not what you should do. But I think in the 20s and actually that kind of baptism of fire, it's good to hustle and just feel the late nights and go for it. I think that's almost like a rite of passage, particularly in the entrepreneur world. And that was certainly, for my first business, was also very true. So I was used to it. And so, but the other thing we had was called a red eye. This is great. So we would go to the coffee shops and we would ask them to do 2 double espressos and an Americano on top.
What?
And that would be our coffee.
2 double espressos?
2 double espressos and then topped up with Americano in a large Starbucks cup. That was our red eye. And so all the
my
guys in
Lord.
there. And so we're drinking those to keep ourselves awake. But then, of course, you get the shivers and you're sweating. And so when people are sweating in the boardroom from pressure, it's like 50% the pressure and 50% like literally
The
like
caffeine.
Like caffeine, like, oh, what's going on? But it was great. I mean, honestly, so I broke a few apprentice records. So we sold the most with in apprentice history. So we sold 4.2 million in 24 hours.
Of what?
Canary Wharf apartments.
Okay, fair enough. I was going to say if it was fish, that's going some, right? Like if you'd done that with fish, that would be oh wow.
Fish.
And
but it was good though. Still,
what did you learn from that though? Like, what's the takeaway from that? Like because that's really like you didn't like. How did you?
Yeah, so it was a really good task. I was project manager for the task as well, and we had to make sure that we got the right location. So the first thing you got to do is you got to negotiate with the developers for you to represent that developer and sell the plans off unit. So we were selling off unit.
Right.
And so we managed to pitch against the other team, and the guy who ultimately won the apprentice, who just beat me, Joseph, he was the team leader of the other one and I was the team leader of that one. So it was kind of, the two, and I only lost one task in the entire series. So I still equal with another woman who was on a task, who was on the apprentice before me, the best win rate on the apprentice, which is basically one task lost out of 10, I think. And so I was up against Joseph for this task, and we, it was later in the game, so we were kind of both looking like favorites. We were doing quite well. And so it was a big head-to-head. It was all kind of geared up for that. And so we won the best location, which was right at Canary Wharf, and he had not such a great location. So that was the first thing. So you've got to make sure that you sell yourself and you kind of hear what they said. So he went bowling in there. And this is negotiation and sales tips really, is that I feel to be a good salesperson, you've got to say less. You've got to say less. You've got to do less, but you've got to ooze with confidence and make the person feel heard. And most of the time, the person will buy themselves. They will talk themselves into buying from you. And I see this all the time, that if you've got a bit of reputation and a good product, then by presenting that and having a meeting with someone, people will tell you why they should be buying it. And all you do is just pull on a few of those levers. You kind of, when you start talking to people, you ask them, so why are you doing this? What is the reason for you needing this? What is the gap? So you kind of try and talk to them about, well, what is the pain that they're currently having, and just let them talk about it. And then once they go down the gap and say, well, this is the pain that I've got, this is the depth of the problem that I have, then you can then talk about, well, what would it look like if we solve that problem? So you then talk about the future pace. You talk about, well, actually, in 12 months' time, once we've solved this, it would look like this. And this is kind of general theory now. And I kind of applied that to the apprentice.
It's general theory, but it's not general practice.
Exactly.
It's out there, but I work with sales teams in companies, and I'm telling you, they don't do this.
It's so important. You've got to ask people why. Why do they have this problem? What is it? And actually, don't just let them take the first answer. Answer a second question after that. So they go to surface level, go deeper, and let them go deeper. And then they ask the 12-month question and go, right, well,
that's a £1 million tip, though, right there. Don't walk past that, because that's a £1 million tip. Like the idea that most salespeople, and I've seen this certainly early in the sales teams that we've trained, has been like, oh yeah, great. Like, what's the problem? And they get the first one. And then they go, right, let me show you how I can solve that. And I've always said the second problem is where the money is. Yeah. Like you have to go, okay, great. And what else isn't right? The what else question will unlock everything. Yeah. But I remember I spend loads of time in the car driving around listening to a tape set by a guy called Tom Hopkins from America. And he used to have the strapline of the program. I remember it now. It was like how to sell like a lamb, close like a lion, or something like that. It was very American, but I listened to it all the time. And one of the things he said in it was, you want sales. People think selling is about being an interesting extrovert. Yeah. He said that's what people think. He said, but what you want to be is an interested introvert. And he said, and if you can figure that out, and you can realize that your job isn't to have the answers, is to have the questions. Yeah. And that always. Just that line from that tape has made me literally millions of pounds in different businesses that I've run over the last 30 odd years. Yeah. But you're right, it's the second question that's where the money is.
Yeah, exactly. And then all you do when you're pitching your product is you've just been given a gift.
Yes.
You've been given all the reasons why they've got pain, and all the reasons why they need to have this thing.
Yes.
And you just frame the product to solve those two things.
Yes.
Job done. And so ultimately, when I was talking to the guys in the property developers within that, and also subsequently the other people who were coming in to buy the off plan and
Right.
the sales that we were making, you were just simply saying, look, this is a wonderful opportunity to be able to get a amazing apartment in Canary Wharf, because they've already told me that they worked in Canary Wharf and their commute was too long and they couldn't afford to be able to go buy something because they, the market's so difficult. And so that's great. So now we're saying, well, look, this is off plan, so you're getting a discount. This is just by your work.
Yep.
This is going to be completing in enough. Yeah. And it's just, yeah. And I think luckily, and this goes back to how we started, I'd had experience of doing sales, and I had experience of working in, different markets. And actually when I did some work and some work experience, I was my dad introduced me to a few of his kind of colleagues, and I ended up on an oil tanker in Wales with peeing rain on a Russian boat, trying to see if they're trying to fraudulently give oil and stuff. I remember it's like distinct, like right there in the raw side of life, all the way through to working in like a big shiny office selling stuff and doing debt collection for the student loans company. That was fun. That was hard telephone skills as well. Which, by the way, if anybody's looking to try and give their kids skills, get on the telephone sales or telephone sales. I mean, that is gutsy. Door-to-door knocking as well, which I did. That is gutsy stuff. And
if you can sell in the home, I was on a podcast recently, interviewed, and they said to me, what's the number one skill, that young entrepreneurs should be learning? And they thought I was going to say AI and all this stuff. And I said, honestly, learn to sell. I said, learn to sell, because you're going to need to sell different people at different times. You might need to sell a supplier on giving you the product you need or the terms you need.
Yeah.
You're probably going to need a banker to sell them on loaning you the money at some point, or you're going to need to sell certain contracts, or you're going to need to sell people on coming to work for you when the business is nowhere near where it can be if they came and joined you. And I said, you can call it selling, you can call it influence, but ultimately it's selling people on things.
And how you frame it to the young person is you can say, look, if you learn to sell, when that great looking blonde walks into the bar,
I'm not sure we should necessarily finish that sentence.
You could go up and you could sell yourself to them. But the point is, it's about confidence, right?
But actually, hang on a second, you just said something. I think the first sale most people need to make is to sell themselves on themselves. Yeah. Most people haven't made that sale. So the reason why they're not where they want to be, they're not successful, they're not at the level that they want to be, is because they haven't sold themselves on the fact that they believe they can do it, or that they're the person that deserves it. They haven't actually made the first sale. Before you sell a product, you have to sell yourself, right? And if you haven't sold you on you, then it's very hard for anyone else to buy into you, because you haven't bought you.
Yeah.
So, and you can feel that, you can tell that when someone walks in the room, within 30 seconds whether they believe in what they're about to pitch. You can feel it.
You do, and it's about confidence. It's about being able to look someone in the eye and just go, right, this is the thing. When we talk about outside of work, that is such an important thing. Friends, being the person that is able to make stuff happen. Like, you always have that one friend in a group that can go and get stuff done, or we'll organize stuff, or we'll get we'll go, right, we're this weekend, guys, we're going to go do this, like this thing's happened. And that's all about the confidence and the ability to make things happen. And I think that all comes down to sales, because it's not just you might go, I'd love to go to a festival this weekend with my mates or what have you, but I'm a little bit unsure if some of them want to go and some of them haven't got enough money and all the rest of it, but it feels really good. What do? You go back to your friends and go, guys, these are all the reasons why we should go. And I understand that it's going to be expensive, but could you imagine this place that, when we get there, we'll have this great time.
That's overcoming objections, isn't it?
And it's overcoming objections. If you can do it with your friends, you can do it with life. You become the person that makes stuff happen. And I think it's an entrepreneurial trait, but I think it's bigger than just an entrepreneurial trait, because you don't have to be an entrepreneur to be a salesperson. The skill of selling is universal.
Why then do so many people have a hang up about doing it?
Because, like you've just said, they haven't sold it themselves. They don't have the confidence. They feel it's icky. It's a little bit kind of like all sales. But it's basically probably they've been taught, they've heard that from parents or people,
or conditioning. Think about Wolf of Wall Street, movies like that. That all of those portray the salesperson as pushy, arrogant, money grabbing, and basically not interested in serving, right, the customer. I think sales is serving. I think if you're genuinely out there solving a problem for somebody, that's what your job is, to help people solve problems. If you can't solve a problem for somebody, have the integrity to go, listen, what I've got doesn't solve that problem for you. I can introduce you to someone else I might know who can solve it, but I'm going to go find somebody I can work with.
And it is cultural as well. You think about the US is far more sales driven. People are so much more open to having a sales conversation with someone because culturally they're used to that. You know, they haven't had so much conditioning, or the conditioning has been done slightly differently. In the UK, it's very much a lot like that. You can't do sales, and you go to other different places around the world, and sales won't be a thing, or sales will be a massive thing. You go to. I was recently in Morocco, and negotiating and selling it's life. It's life.
If you're gonna walk down the street, get ready to negotiate, because you're not going anywhere without negotiating for anything, right? But I think it's interesting because if you look in America, there's about 4.2 million self-employed salespeople. Whereas in the UK, self-employed salespeople isn't a thing anymore. Everyone's on basics. Everyone's, then basic plus commission plus pension plus this plus that. We've kind of lost that hunger, I think, has disappeared in the UK. And you can tell that because if you look at most people's business cards, it says anything other than salesperson, right? I'm a business development manager. I'm a, commercial exec. It's like nobody wants to put the title salesperson on it. And culturally, I think that's also why I think marketing, people will go to marketing now as the answer. It's like, well, I don't want to do selling, so I've got to get good at marketing. I think that's where the switch is.
Yeah. Or coming from, with the marketing agency we've got and the business that we're running now, a lot of people will go, well, I just want to do some content and I just want people to go down a funnel and they want to buy at the end. And I was like, cool. And you want them to go buy a $5,000 thing without talking to a human? They're like, yeah. Yeah, I was like, yeah.
Have you done that in your life? Just out of interest, when did you last buy a $5,000 thing without talking to a human? Did you just do that? No.
It's not going to be, at some point, I don't know, maybe AI will be there, but I don't know. I think humans feel like they need to have a human connection
100%.
To feel warm and fuzzy about the idea of departing with $5,000 for whatever it is that they're buying. And if they don't get that, the odds are really against you. Got to manufacture that somehow by having them consume hours and hours of content and make you so rock star that you wouldn't ever expect. I wouldn't ever expect to have a meeting with, Richard Branson if I'm buying an airline ticket, right? You just wouldn't, because he's not there. But part of his brand makes me want to go and fly Virgin, or maybe used to want to make me go fly Virgin. So the whole point of that is that you can do that, but you've got to be massive. And to get massive, you would have had to have done the sales calls anyway. So therefore, the whole thing.
We also learn from that conversation, right? Sales conversations is where you learn what the objections are.
Yeah.
We just finished running my F12 mastermind for the last 2 days, and obviously, members are renewing for next year. We've got some people who finished the journey; they've achieved their goals, which is great. So we always offer potential members the chance to come along and experience it for a day. Because if you're going to spend £20,000 on a mastermind, you need to have experienced it and know what it's like, know that you connect with the people in the room, and know that, okay, I can fit into this group. This feels like something for me, and I get how it works, and I get the value proposition. You can't do that on an online call. I couldn't do that without you. I'll say to people, listen, come and experience it, and then make a decision about whether it's for you, because you have to experience something like that. In my opinion, I'm not going to spend £20,000 on a funnel, unless I've experienced it. I've sat somewhere, I've been in a room, I've met the people. I go, yeah, this is where I want to be, and this is what I want to be doing. So what's your big, just to close this loop, and then I want to talk about some other stuff. In terms of The Apprentice, what's the biggest takeaway lesson for you out of that?
I'm not sure about takeaway. I think the thing that I realized about myself was that I don't want to be a celebrity. And that was quite big, because I was not sure when I first went in there. I never thought I'd go on, so that was not a thing. And then I got on and did well as I got through to the final, and missed out. But the one thing,
why do you think you didn't win, out of interest?
The guy before, the year before, was won by Mark Wright, who was a marketing agency.
Right.
And so my year was the year directly after that, and I was pitching a marketing agency. So that was a problem. But I kind of tried to tailor the pitch a little bit to go, well, look, we do this part of marketing and he does that. But you got to remember, it's a narrative, right?
Yes.
And Lord Sugar's not there looking for investments. He's worried about legacy, right? So for him, it's about how is he coming across? How can he kind of invest in different businesses? And also it's a media show, so they don't want to have like marketing agency. They don't want to have, Slick Mark and then Slick Rick, the two marketing people, and then next year there's another market. They don't want that.
No.
They like Joseph's a plumber, and
so it's a good story.
Got expelled from school. Like Plummy Richard, who's living in Fergie's old house, like coming from Surrey, like going up there, going, what?
They just needed a different narrative, right?
yeah. So I feel, but that's what I've internalized. But also, my brother was a business partner with me, so we're 50-50 business partners in the business that I was pitching. And so, when I'd get into the nitty gritty of it, I'd say, look, this is not a new business, right? I'm giving you my existing business that's already doing a few $100,000 worth of turnover. We've got 3 staff. One of them is my brother. Yes, fine. You can have 50%. Like, this is a really good investment, and I would take 20 and my brother would take 25. Job done. And they said, look, you absolutely can't do that. It's got to be a new business. So I was like, well, Joseph, the bloody plumber's thrown his plumbing business into it. It's just that he owns his outright, himself. And so on the boardroom, I said, look, it's a 50-50 business with my brother, and and then the pressure came on me, and I really gutted myself that when the pressure came on and they forced me, I agreed that I would then say, no, it's fine. I would then set up a new business, basically, essentially cutting my brother out of the same marketing agency and the same marketing agency concept that I've been working on, to go and work with Sugar. And of course, that obviously was not good to do as a brother, and wrong.
Did that make Sunday lunch awkward?
It did for a little while. It was the beginning of the end of that business, but we exited it together. But it was not a good end to that marketing agency. Ultimately, it did well after that, but it never felt the same. And also, it was more of a trick, really, I think, because then the reason why Sugar didn't invest was because it was so confused over it. And I think if I just stuck to my guns and just said, no, you can have this business,
that's a good lesson.
But it's 2 of us. So you got to, even though the person's a billionaire staring at you with 6 cameras looking at every single angle.
Is that weird? Is that odd? Is it like, because I imagine that boardroom is a very intense place to be.
It is.
Like just I mean, obviously we're in a studio here, but it doesn't feel intense. But I imagine, you obviously got Karen Brady or whoever's on the.
Yeah, it was Claude Litton and Karen Brady. Yeah.
So I went to school with her, by the way.
Did you?
I did. Yeah. But I think I can just imagine that being. I was like Claude. I thought he was a really sharp cookie, actually, really sharp. But I can imagine with all the lights, the cameras and stuff. It's a bit like the Dragon's Den when we had Emma on talking about being on Dragon's Den. Like you see a 20-minute clip, but that's over 2.5 hours of constant filming.
Yeah.
And she said, rightly so, like when you stood there, when you're stood in front of that group for 2.5 hours, everybody wilts. There's just because you don't get water, you don't get anything to hydrate. You just stood in front of lights for 2.5 hours getting quizzed. Everybody's going to break, right?
And it's they film enough to make you the villain, the hero, the idiot.
Yeah.
And so whichever narrative they want to choose, they can do.
I remember. I have to tell this because it's so funny. Right? Have you ever seen that TV show where you have people come around for dinner at different people's houses? Come dine with me. Yeah. I got offered to go on Come Dine With Me, right? So they were like, oh, we'd like you to come on Come Dine With Me. But I don't know why. But anyway, for some reason, I'd popped on some social media thing somewhere, right? And my wife was very smart because she just said to me, okay, you need to work out who they're trying to make you to be. She said, because like, think about it. Like, are you going to be the villain or are you going to be like, who are you going to be in this? And I was like, and I said to them, who else have you got on it? And they gave me the list of the other 3. And I was like, yeah, I'm the bad guy. Like this, they're putting me in that role because there was the mum and there was the this and I was like, oh, they're going to bring me in as the entrepreneurial bad guy. Like that's the role they. And I was like, so I turned it down and said, yeah, no thanks. Plus, I'm not a good enough cook, in my opinion, for it to have worked. But I was just
That's
like,
why it would have worked.
I was like, that'll be the narrative, right? Yeah. That's the story they want. Yeah. And I think you have to be. There's a really important lesson about dealing with the media with this, which is you've got to be super clear if you're going to play with the media about what's their agenda, because it's not to make you look good. It's to tell a story, to sell a product, to sell advertising, to get clicks. You need to be aware of, if you're going to play in that game, what their goal is, and it's not to help you.
Yeah. Well, and this is why I've worked out. So the kind of not wanting to be a celebrity piece is because I realized, like, I came out of it and it was great. Like you definitely get your 5 minutes. I remember.
Did you get an uplift in the business? Did the marketing agency grow from it?
The business was free off the hook, but then I'd have meetings with people in London who literally just wanted me to come in and have a selfie with me. So they would pretend they wanted a website. I'd go all the way out to London, spending all this time and money to go up there. And I was like, these guys aren't even interested. They just wanted to see me in their office and take a photo for their social. I was like, this is ridiculous. But there was also quite funny things. Like I'd get the tube and suddenly the entire tube carriage is like asking me questions like, what's the boardroom like and all the rest of it. And you're getting you can't walk down the street in London without getting people asking for a selfie whilst during the time it's on and sort of, a few months after. And then you start chasing it. So then there was like a red carpet deals with people from Love Island and The Apprentice lot and all the rest of it. So you're invited to these things and people are mingling and you start talking to all of these kind of, Z-listers. And I'm going, God. So, and they're all trying to get onto The Jungle. They're all trying to go onto Big Brother and what have you. And of course, then they're having to go book their own like photo shoots to try and get like lingerie pictures to be able to leak to places to be able to get. And,
it's a game. Once you get on the inside and you realize. I remember somebody in that world telling me, you don't realize, Paul. Most of the people who turn up at the red carpet stuff and they turn up in limos and stuff like that, most of them have hired the limo to pick them up round the corner.
Yeah, 100%.
where they're stood in the rain or whatever to get in the limo to drive 10 minutes round the corner to get dropped off. They pay for all that themselves, and when you start to get behind it, you realize how much of that is fabricated.
Oh, massive.
Anyway, like
we were in this group of between these sort of Love Island and Big Brother and what have you, and they were all texting each other to be able to synchronize their entrance into this red carpet event. And we're all in these black cabs because we met them for a drink beforehand and I just sort of just went along with it, and we're all in these black cabs lined up, and then they're just leaving 30 seconds between each one because they know the paps were there then. So then they're all getting out. The paps are loving it because they can just like in the space of half an hour, it's all done for them. They can go home and chill for the night. But it was there and the entrance and as we go out and you're working out who goes out first of the car and who's opening for the next person, and then the girls are kind of not like pulling their skirts down, trying to pull them up a bit just so like when they get out the car there might be like a revealing shot that then might actually and I'm just like this is not right.
It's not business,
not what I want.
Right?
And this is not what I'm about. I've got Cara by then had Poppy and Milo, my son, was already at home, and I've got the business that I'm running. I'm like, I don't need any of this in my life. I went on a business show. I scratched that itch. It actually did quite nicely for the profile. I'm still banging on about it now. And so,
but hopefully we're extracting some lessons here, right? I mean, I think it's really funny because sometimes you have to do something to realize what you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Right. And I think but there's a really important part here because I've been down this, like I wanted to own marketing agencies or stuff, right? And I did that, and we had 4 years, and Adam and I built an agency and whatever, and then I realized that actually I didn't want to do that. Yeah. And I think as an entrepreneur, it's okay to go scratch the itch.
You should do.
You absolutely should do. But you should also not be afraid to walk away from it if it isn't you. Yeah. If it doesn't vibe with you, if it isn't what you want to do next, you've got to be okay to go, yeah, all right, did that bit, ended the cycle, finished the journey, right? There's always a beginning, a middle, and an end to everything, right? And I always say, you will exit your business. The question is whether you're going to exit on your terms or the market's going to exit you. Yeah. Right? Because you will leave. You need to realize that you will leave everything you ever do. Yeah. Right? Like whether you get sick and you leave because you get sick and can't run it anymore, whether you end up being in the small percentage of people who sell it, because like less than 15% of businesses actually get sold. Like if you're in that group, great, but otherwise you're likely to leave because the market moves on you, or you get sick, or you just run out of energy and it fails, right? So when you realize that you are going to leave, you need to plan that a bit better. So you've exited what, 3 now?
Yeah.
Right. And just talk us through that process. Were they intentional exits? Did you set them up that way?
So my kind of the first lost one, sold one, running one. That's kind of my kind of journey. So the first one was the business plan that we went on to The Apprentice with my brother. We then went and exited that business, and Tim exited a bit beforehand because it was never quite the same. And then I went on and sold that business to another agency.
Where was it around? Like, because that's a service-based business,
so 28
right?
staff.
So it's pretty big, right? Like you got
in revenue. Yeah,
28 is a big team.
Yeah, it was decent. Yeah. In the UK, and also we had some offshore people we were working with at the time, and so that was a good business. It was good. It did really well after The Apprentice. It was a proper business. It had its own offices and all that sort of fun stuff.
Grown up.
A grown up business. Everybody should have one of those.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then when I sold that business, I sort of spun out a small little business that I then went into business with my studio manager, who was in the business that we just sold. They didn't want to continue with him, and I also got a nice clean exit myself. So we then went into a little JV, which was like a WordPress business. So it was a pure marketing agency, my first business, like full service digital marketing agency, and I loved it. It was really good fun, lots of different projects, but the variety was the problem. That was actually
it's hard to systemize the variety, right?
To systemize every project slightly different. Yeah, big clients, small clients. It was nightmare clients, etc. And so we then thought, well, we don't want anything anymore. So we're going to create this thing called WP Aid, which was basically first aid for your WordPress website, was the idea behind it. And so it's like a subscription, £99 a month. And we'll make 3 changes to your website plus some hosting. Lovely little business, stack loads of people in there, and then big volume, nice subscription model, really good business. And then COVID, and I had that for all the way up to COVID. And then when COVID was happening, the world was going a bit crazy. And I think, we talk about those times to exit and take some money off the table, stick that in some, work towards your fire number, that sort of stuff. The bounce back loans, people were throwing those around, right? So there's an opportunity to be able to take a bounce back loan within the business and also take some cash from my co-owner and also some cash reserves from the business and do a big exit. So basically it was a management buyout. So my fellow, the studio manager, brought that business from me, and then I took a big chunk of cash out and stuck it in there, and happy days, because I was growing my coaching business alongside it, which is what has evolved into my current business. But before that, there was my slightly left field, like. You
didn't go and buy a skydiving club.
Maybe even more absurd. So one of my clients was a plumber, and because the plumber beat me, I was always like, right, I'm going to help this guy make his best website. I want him to compete against Joseph, who won The Apprentice from me. And so he was like my little pet project. And so I was doing a bit of coaching, and I was helping him with his website. And he came into the office one day when I still had the marketing agency, crying. I was like, mate, what's going on? Like, what's wrong?
Right.
And he said, I'm gonna lose the business. And I thought, how can you be losing the business? The website we built for him, was great, doing well on the SEO rankings, in search engine rankings. And the phone was ringing off the hook, right? Honestly, like people wanted boilers serviced and plumbing done and all that sort of stuff. And I said, this is nuts. I said, well, let me have a look at the accounts. And basically he'd been robbing Peter to pay Paul on the accounts. He'd been taking more money than he should have come out. He had massive tax bills. I was like, you've just run this really, really badly. You just haven't been looking at it.
Right.
And I was like, the business is gone. It's going to have to go under. But look, to service some of your debts, I tell you what I'll do. I'll buy the vans off you. So I brought 3 vans off him, and I said, I'll buy the website off you and the phone numbers off you, right? And so I'll buy all of that. You can then go use that. You can try and pay back all the debt as possible, and then obviously, that business will go under. and I basically brought the assets out of
Right.
the business.
Yep.
Anyway, him being an idiot went off and spent the money and, all the rest of it. Just typical, just stupidity. But the phone started ringing and I was like, oh, bloody hell, it's getting directed to my mobile now. It's like, hello, Mrs. Baggins. What do you know? You need a boiler service for the Shire. Okay, well, I better go do, I'm sure we can sort something out. So I've now got a boiler servicing business and the phone's ringing. I'm like, oh no, what have I done? And so we basically I only brought it for like 20 grand or whatever for all those assets, which was great. So I sold the van straight away and put them on lease purchases, got 20 grand back from there. So I'm now in for nothing.
Sensible, right? Asset sale, sell off assets,
Exactly.
Generate cash, release them, assume, put the working capital in.
And I'm in for zero.
Yeah, great.
Happy days.
Very
right?
clever.
And so then we go and because I had the office still with the agency. So we re-employed 3 of the van drivers, put one of the admin team back in on the books, and away they went, right? And it worked. But what I didn't realize is that yes, you can generate leads and yes, you can work, but it is a real tough volume-based business. To fill up one of the engineers' diaries, you're talking about up to 10 appointments a day that they can get to, 8 to 10 appointments a day. So that's a good day work. And so that's a lot of sales for 3 people every single day.
It's a utilization model.
Like, it's massive.
Running engineers generally. I mean, I've coached plumbing businesses. I've coached security companies with guys in vans on the road. And the more you coach those kind of businesses, and you realize very fast that it's all about utilization. With the security engineers doing servicing calls, for example, we knew that if we get them to 6, they're profitable. 5, you break even, 4, you lose money.
Yeah.
So like we could distill it down to that level. And suddenly, if you've got 20 of those on the road, you can have half of them are doing great, but if the other half are all at 4, not 6, suddenly the thing is making a loss, or you're barely breaking even, and you're still running 20 guys. You're still having all of that, and it is a hard model to make money on. You've got to be all over the detail, or you've got to have somebody operationally who is absolutely able to do that. Because if you're off by 1 or 2 van engineers, technical people, if you're off by 1 or 2, then that's all your profit. That can be the whole margin. That can be all of it. You can have a team of 18, but if 3 of them are not profitable, that can be all the profit for the group, for the team gone. So it's like, it's you have to be really hyper efficient on doing this. It requires a level of, now the tech's a lot easier to do that, but you've got to, that's why lead generation actually becomes the number one skill in that kind of business, right? Because if you can't generate enough leads, you can't optimize the back end.
Yeah, and recruitment was really difficult to find the right engineers. So what we worked out is that 60% we were 60% capacity. So we worked on capacity. So 60% of the diary's capacity was profitable. 80 was lovely, but when we got up to 80 for the 3, then we recruited number 4. Everybody went back down to 60 because we ebbed out. We then worked it back up to 80, got to 80, recruited the next one, right? And so we worked it that way. We got up to 7 vans on the road, 7 engineers, way over $1 million in revenue, nicely profitable, and then exited that in 2 years. And it was hell, those 2 years. It sounds like a great, well done, Rich, you did really well. But it was just that I'm still running the marketing agency and all
at the same time.
And I'm sort of exiting it mid those 2 years. So I'm kind of doing an exit. I'm running this new thing, which I'm kind of can't believe I actually got myself involved with. And also I'm setting up this 3rd business, and I've, taken on, become a BBC radio presenter. And I was doing a big trade show. I was burning out massively. We worked out there were sort of 5 different business interests that I was kind of working on at that time. Those were the 3 big ones: the agency, the WP Aid, and boiler servicing 24/7. And those were the ones we're working on. And I just was crazy. And the straw that really broke the camel's back for that boiler servicing business for me was I was the emergency rollover for the phone numbers when nobody was in the office. And Christmas Day, the phone rings, and I'm like, oh, don't answer it. And I was like, oh, and it rang again and rang, and I was like, oh, I've got to answer. So I answered it, and this woman's boiler's broken, and she's got a 90-year-old, which we installed. It was our fault. And this 90-year-old, she's got her 90-year-old mother there for Christmas lunch, and the house is freezing, and there's massive, and I'm just saying to her that I'm not going to be able to get anyone to her till tomorrow. Like, their Christmas is kind of completely messed up for us.
Yeah.
And it's not like they could go to like it was just, and it was our fault. And I was like, I don't like this business. This business is not what I'm all about. And I take my hat off to everybody who does that. And sometimes you've got to go, because my dad did an oil distribution business, did heating oil for people's houses. So it's quite linked to it. So I used to lean on him for it, because they would deliver heating oil, and he would, tell me that, we used to have this. People ran out of heating oil at Christmas, and we couldn't get people out to them, and you would get these phone calls. And what I realized is that although, my mentor, my father, had run a business that was similar, I was not that person. And I can't even put a shelf up as well. So anything practical, like I just like, toolbox. Oh, I need some crayons to get over this. Like, I can't do it. I'm like a creative, like non like whenever we need something done in the house, I ask Cara to go get a real man round to do some stuff.
I think there are two types of men in the world. I think there are the DIYs and the GSIs, right? GSIs are get someone in. I'm a GSI. I'm a GSI. I am 100% a GSI. I am not a DIY. Every time in the history of our marriage, if I've ever done DIY, it's ended up with more money needing to be spent to fix it. Exactly. So we just have this rule now that I'm not that person. So I'll pay for them. But like if you want something done, so then get GSI, get someone in, right? Get someone in, just get someone in. I do think I have a massive amount of respect for people in that profession, that industry, because it is hard, right? It's really hard. And anything that's dealing with consumers in their home is stressful. Sue and I ran a domestic cleaning business for a while, for a couple of years. And, again, we learned very quickly with that. People would ring and leave angry voicemail messages on the phone at 11:30 at night about the fact that their kitchen wasn't as clean as it should be and all that. And you're just like, I don't like that. I don't want that stress level in my life in that particular way. Every business, if you're going to run it, is going to have some element of stress, right? Like it's pre-built into the model. Things are going to go wrong. Customers are going to get let down. But it was the anger that used to really kind of surprised the heck out of me. Yeah. So did you ever get near burnout, or did you how close did you get?
I don't think I got. I've never burnt out, because I wouldn't know what that. I must have not burnt out, because I don't know what burnt out would feel like. I just had to keep on grinding. But I think at the right time in my life, the right mentor has appeared, and so the business book, The One Thing, came across my desk, and it's a great book if anybody hasn't read it. It's very easy, like focus on one thing, like
but that's hard, don't it?
Yeah.
So, but I think focus is. I just want to speak to this because I think this is a really interesting challenge, right? So the mastermind I was running for the last 2 days, go around the room and ask everybody what's their biggest challenge right now, and there's a question I asked, which is, well, what do you want and what do you need, right? And people go, I want to feel motivated, or I want to deal with this issue, or whatever. But what do they need? And like 8 of the people in that room all said the same thing, which was, I need to be more focused. And I think you just articulated it. You were involved in 5 different things, and I'm like, firstly, why do you think people struggle with focus? And secondly, how have you dialed it back to get focused? What have you done to become more focused?
Yeah. So I think it's the magpie effect, which again kind of breeds into this kind of neurospectrum, around entrepreneurship, ADHD, dyslexia, all of that sort of stuff. And look, everybody's on a spectrum, right? Otherwise it wouldn't be a spectrum. And so you sort of swing. We're all on
very
it,
true,
right?
yeah.
So and I think that I'm definitely the type of person that loves to new projects. New stuff feels good. Not very good at finishing things. And so I just unleashed it, because The Apprentice gave me vast amounts of opportunity that, the BBC wants you to do a radio show. Yeah, go for it. Oh, the Brooklands Radios also want you to do a radio show. Yeah, fuck it. I'll do that as well. Sorry, I'm going to cut that bit out. So yeah, I do all the different radio stuff. And you just say yes to stuff, and you suddenly realize that you've taken too much on. And this book was all around, well, actually, where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? And I had to go back, and it comes back to that kind of what's your number? And it really did allow me to go, right, I'm just going to start to unpeel things. And here's a big piece of advice to people that I don't think enough people say, or I haven't heard anyone say it. I only read 4 business books a year.
Interesting.
But
really?
I read them and I reread them. And then when they actually, you get these business books and they say, you should do this. I do the thing, right?
Yeah.
I implement the thing. And I might start maybe a couple of others and I'll immediately put them down if it's just not, it's taking me in a direction I don't want to do. And I will go, right, that's the one. So when I read Daniel Priestley's Key Person of Influence, that made me then go and jump onto The Apprentice and, go do a rest. Like I did everything. When I read the one thing, I didn't just read it. I was like, right, I'm going to go onto the mastermind retreat that he had in Austin, Texas, and actually hang out.
Oh, really? Did you actually go do that?
And do it. And
Right.
I went and hang out with Jay Papasan, and it was brilliant. It was actually a couples goal setting retreat. And so the whole point is getting you as a couple to go and actually talk about what do you both want, and actually how does that work for your business, and what does that look for family. It was the most wonderful thing. And I'm actually looking at producing some sort of couples goal setting thing in the future, because it was so powerful for Cara and I to be able to actually set some goals together, because you tend to, in business world, you're in your own head most of the time anyway, and you're setting goals and then you're telling the family, this is what I think, and then suddenly the goals slightly change because they slightly tweak them, and that's not the best way to do it. To collaborate with your better half, I think, is a great way to set goals.
So just on that, I think, I mean, obviously, I've been divorced. I think quite a lot of entrepreneurs have got that T-shirt, and I looked at the stats, and entrepreneurs have one of the highest divorce rates of any profession. Okay. And that's because, number one, if we're honest, we're in love with the business, right? Whatever business we're doing right now, we're normally in love with it, and we're like really passionate about it. Number two, we know how hard we have to work to do that, and therefore we tend to dial out other things. And quite often the thing that suffers the most is the family. It is. And I think it's quite hard to be married to an entrepreneur because we are quite often distracted and we're always on. And, being present is a challenge all the time, right? It's something I'm always having to work with Sue. It's like, she's like, put the phone down. It's like, but you don't understand. I'm not going on and scrolling on Instagram or TikTok. That the phone is now, it's replaced the laptop. It's the main communication channel for most things that we do and most people that I'm talking to or whatever. And I think that's a very powerful idea. And I would definitely love to talk to you about how we could create something like that, because I think alignment between couples who happen to run a business. I also think if you're both in the same business, that's hard. That's the hardest thing to do, is both work in the business and be in a marriage together. I think that is one of the most challenging dynamics, family dynamics you can have. And
it's the money side as well. You money is very much up and down, and when it's up, actually a lot of it needs to go back into the business as well.
Yes.
And also you are, you're kind of motivated to say, oh, it's great. We're doing great. We're doing this. And then like, well, where's the money? Oh no, it's going to come. And, it's just highs and lows. And of course, that's difficult. And then you go and try and get a mortgage as a business owner as well. And then of course you can't buy the house you want because, you're a business owner and you can't use you don't have a normal salary like other people.
Yeah, we talked about this with Jason about this. I rent, and I've rented now for 10 years. And I wouldn't go back to trying to justify my living to, I can live great in a rented house. Thank you very much. I'm fine. I don't need to go and beg to a bank and stuff. And Jason actually did a really interesting piece where he actually did a whole analysis on whether it's better to rent or he actually did all the math and everything on it and came out with a thesis that it was actually more profitable to rent for entrepreneurs by the time you've worked out the cap gains tax and all of the money you have to pay just to be able to get that mortgage. And I'm like, well, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, and there's no way we'd be able to do it if it wasn't. Cara's now quit work, but if it wasn't for the fact that she was very successful when she was working, because we used to laugh because basically Cara bought all the houses and then I made the money. Like it was that was the only way we could.
That seems like a good division of labour. To be fair, I mean, I can see that working, right? So when did you sort of make the shift into coaching? When did you start to realise that was so just to to kind of round the circle and then into coaching is that the one thing made me go, right, I need to just focus on one business, right? And
so I sold the marketing. I was already selling the marketing agency, so that was fine. But then I quit the radio stuff, which was such a shame. But it wasn't paying that much, but it was more like a hobby thing. and sold the WPA, sold boiler servicing 24/7, stopped all the other gigs that we were getting started with, and then just focused on my coaching business. So that became what we were, the Lead Gen Academy, and we had the Lead Gen Summits, and we were running these as in-person events, and then just went forward with that, which was great. So you enjoy it. It was once a month, everybody come and learn about lead generation, and we'd have a big summit each year. So kind of a classic group coaching model. And then this little thing called COVID came along and messed up all my in-person events. So probably just before COVID, really focused on the one thing, and then into that. And so we then had to translate what was the Lead Gen Academy into something that I thought would work better for an international market and be online. And so the $1 million sprint was born, because a lot of people were saying to me, well, how did you grow the agency, which obviously went to $1 million in revenue, and also the boiler service? And there was a lot of interest in that. And so I packaged all that up into a coaching product to help people to go from some revenue to $1 million in revenue. So the $1 million sprint, and it became an online program. That was the COVID transition. And then coming out of COVID, we then started to do drop-in clinics. But here's the thing, because you talked about being a marketer. I was laughing to myself when you talked about, you realised that you're not a marketing agency person.
Yes.
I realised I wasn't a coach. I was a marketing agency person. So my problem with coaching, and I love it because we still do an element of coaching in what we do. But I would go and tell someone, right, here's the 5 things you need to do before I see you next, right? So 2 weeks time, right? Let's do this as this. Well, we've agreed this, right? And so 2 weeks time, they come back and I go, right, how's the 5 things done? And they're like, I haven't done any of them because I'm so busy with this stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, well, look, shall we try and get them done by next time? And so I just got worn out by people not getting stuff done. And I just was like, right.
That's really frustrating as a coach. Like, it is exhausting if people don't. There's a reason why I started saying, look, you get paid on what you get done. It's because and accountability coaching, I think, is very different from accelerator coaching. I think there's a real difference. Like, I think if you're going to coach somebody for a 1 or 2 year to sprint, to hit a goal, to exit, there's a really clear, big enough kind of point to get to. So that for me is like, they want to hit that target. So they then tend to execute much higher. Whereas if it's just kind of like, I want to coach because I want to generally sort of get better or improve, then you end up just being a nag, in my opinion. You just become an accountability nag, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's frustrating. But I think that's interesting, because did you just get to a point where you go, there's got to be a better way to solve this?
Well, I got more and more into the details. So I'm quite a checklist, details, process driven guy.
You're a calibrator, aren't you, from memory on the contribution compass? I think. Yeah.
No, the thing at the top.
You're a creator calibrator.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're into the minutiae, the detail, and all of the systems. Yeah. You're a more systems guy, right? Yeah.
I'm a systems. So having run the agency and always had checklists for all of my team, I would have them in there, and then that's how I'd run them. So every task would have a checklist, and so then I would then start to create checklists for clients to go, right, these are the things you need to do, and then I'd then say, look, I'm just so frustrated, right? You just need to get a VA to go do this stuff for you. So then I ended up half coaching clients and half coaching their VAs. Their VAs would come on board, and of course the caliber of VAs would be all over the shop. And I've just, God, right, okay. I'll tell you what we do. Why don't we just make this really simple? I will give you the VA, and you can, and then they can be fully trained, and I'll just include it within the package, right? So you get a VA and the coaching within this $1 million sprint accelerator, which was a really great innovation. Actually, people liked it, and of course, then people started to go, right, actually, stuff is getting done. So I am getting my 20 LinkedIn connection requests done a day. I am sending a post every day. I'm clearing my inbox. I've got someone doing the stuff. And so now the conversations went back to being a little bit bigger picture and strategic, which is exactly what ultimately the fun side of coaching is. That.
Yes.
The tough side of coaching is going into the details. And so what ended up happening is more and more people started to buy the coaching product. And so we had to keep on getting more and more VAs. And my knowledge of using VAs was strong from previous, because we used Philippines and India. But my grievance always was that you would give them 3 things to get done. They would do it overnight. two of them come back perfect, one of them come back wrong. You then go back and get the thing done, and it would take sort of 3 days to get 3 things done. Whereas we look directly down for our VAs to get them on the same time zone. So we look down to Africa, and we've been able to recruit from there, and it's been brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, particularly Nigeria. So the beauty of
how did you end up with Nigeria as a was it literally on a map, draw a line down, same time zone, or
no? We had one of our clients who actually was who had helped with Nigerian outsourcing before, and so we kind of knew it, and so I went and had my first VA, or I took a VA, my first from Nigeria, a couple of years, probably, just after COVID. So maybe a couple of years before I made this change to have the VAs in. So I'd already been working with Flora, our OG, the original, and she's been brilliant. She's still with me today. She's now my head of location and recruitment. She managed that entire team. She's wonderful, and everything is like a can-do attitude. Connectivity's good. English is the first language over there, purely because there's so many regional dialects that everybody's educated in English.
Yes,
obviously British Empire colony, etc. So you've still got legal systems. You've still got loads of kind of connection trading wise,
right?
Obviously there's lots of nuance around kind of working with that, like anywhere, but I find they're kind of straight talking, hungry. There's a huge education desire within Nigeria, and actually if you look in the British school series, British schools, you'll find a higher rate of Nigerian independent school students, because the emphasis on education is so massive out there. It's so important that kind of investment in education gets you out and into it. Do you know Lagos is the largest speaking city in the world, bigger than London? There's more people that speak English in Lagos than any other city in the world, right? So it's massive. So I've fallen in love with the place. And
have you been out? You've been out.
So we're just going. This is how quickly this has all happened. Because remember, the first VA that we gave to a client was about 1.5 years ago, and so since then we've gone from Flora to 154,
which is insane.
Yeah, it's mental. And so the speed of it's been so quick that we built the in-location team through Flora, and how we've recruited. We've got an academy out there to be able to train VAs. So we put them through a training academy to make sure that they're all trained up on our system. And then we give half a VA to our clients. So they get a VA that's working 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, working for them, and the coaching piece on top. Or what happened is, obviously $1 million sprint, we'd have clients that would come to us and go, well, I'm over $1 million in revenue, so I don't want you coaching, but can I have a VA? And we're like, well, okay, we could do that. And then I've got someone who's like, well, I'm an electrician and I don't really need to do this kind of like LinkedIn stuff. It's not what I want to do, although actually there's a call for LinkedIn for electricians, but that's a by the by. But I want to have a VA to go do my bookkeeping, for example. Or one of the nuances that we realized is that there's a huge set of American call centers, because the Philippines is time zone wise miles out for the US.
Yeah, true.
Whereas Nigeria is kind of the first thing you bump into if you go across the ocean, right? You go across the Atlantic. So you hit Nigeria there, and so they put in loads of call centers that are phoning into US time zone, and so we started to have these people come on these interviews. So Flora does about 30 interviews a week, and then she puts through about 8 into a final interview for me, and then we recruit, tends to be about 5 to 6 people a week, right? And so we suddenly started to get, there's lots of people who just sound very American. Like, why do you sound so American? Or this one lady who literally sounded like Mary Poppins. It was brilliant. It was like perfect, like perfectly perfect in every way. Like she was just wonderful. So how have you learned to speak like that? Because obviously, I'm talking to so many people from Nigeria each week, and so I know you kind of understand the different like accents from different locations, etc. And so how? And they're like, well, we worked at this place and that place, and so these American call centers are are teaching how to sound American when they're doing it, or how to sound British when they're sending out to Britain. And we thought, oh my God, this is great. So I employed a couple from my team just to make some telephone calls. So we run a weekly event. And so they're phoning out our database, booking people onto our weekly event. And they were brilliant. And the results in terms of appointments getting set for our team, event bookings getting put up, even confirmations to make sure people turn up on time. It was wonderful. And I was like, well, this is great. So we started to do that. And now we've got sort of 35 people, 35 VAs on our telephone appointment setting team.
Really? Just on the telephone appointment setting team?
So remember, so they all work, so most of them will work half a day. So they'll have 2 clients. So you're talking probably some people have the whole one because it's worked well. So you're probably talking about 50 of our clients are using telephone appointment setters through telephones. Right. Brilliant. Because
that's amazing.
We're a high level distributor and a company. So through there, you can just set up.
They're all trained on Go High Level and stuff.
Yeah. So no, I mean, they can be trained on whichever software is required.
Yeah.
But as a mantra, we set them up on high level to start off with, because a lot of our clients go through that.
Yeah, well, we're on Go High Level, and there are a lot of our clients are on it, and obviously a lot of clients of ours are now using your services and using VAs in that way. And I think the thing I think is really interesting, and obviously if you are watching this or listening to this and you want to find out more, we'll drop a link in the notes below where someone can go find out more or book a call to find out more. And the reason why I think it's also perfect timing. There's a whole kind of thing in entrepreneurship, sometimes right product, right time. And I think given what happened in the budget in April when they suddenly stuck and a whole bunch more national insurance on all employers, I think that suddenly had people go, I need a different outsourcing solution. I need a solution to be able to have, because the reality is you can't hire a part-time salesperson in the UK for a fraction of what you can over there. Exactly. And also I can scale it up and scale it down as I need it. So if demand changes, I can scale it, but also suddenly I can be location free in terms of I don't have to have a delivery team in the UK just because I did what we might deliver in the UK, but my sales and marketing team doesn't need to be in the UK.
Yep.
I think that's a really big mental shift, isn't it?
Yeah.
For people to get. And I've got a video editing team, production team, obviously the studio's in the UK, but everything else is over in the Philippines, because great talent, really appreciative. I think there's a different level of hunger for opportunity.
Yeah.
Versus entitlement you tend to find in some places in the UK, not always, but you can do. And I just think there was a question I was going to ask you, which is, you're very good at, one of your superpowers is systemizing and scaling stuff, right? It is one of your superpowers. So if you're an entrepreneur listening to this, where should they start looking at either outsourcing or systemizing in your experience? What are the quick wins to go after that most entrepreneurs should look at if they want to free up some time? Because most entrepreneurs, time is the biggest constraint, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I don't have time to do this, and this. Okay. So you got to get out of the boxes, yes?
Yeah.
So where would you encourage people to start looking at those opportunities?
Yeah. So I think the obvious place is to say, well, where are you? What stuff do you not like doing? But actually, I just feel like that becomes like a hodgepodge of stuff.
I agree.
And actually, I think that when we think about a kind of end-to-end business, I think that there's a number of categories. One's around awareness. Mm-hmm. So how are people understanding a little bit about you, content, connection? So things like, are you sending 20 connection requests a day on LinkedIn? 100 a week. That's kind of the limit that LinkedIn allows you to do. Are you DMing people? Are you putting content out? Are you creating something here that is getting connection, making people aware that you are a business coach and you specialize in whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And then the next piece is consideration. So it's all very good having, I've got people I know who've got 20, 30,000 followers on LinkedIn, but they just aren't getting any leads. That's because they haven't built the second piece, which is consideration. And consideration is having some sort of moment. I believe that every week should have its moment, a weekly moment. And so that might be a podcast, that might be a long form video on YouTube, that might be a newsletter, that might be an event, whatever it is, could be a LinkedIn Live. It needs to have some sort of focal point, some sort of crescendo to the week. So having that thing to be able to hang your week off means the rest of your strategy in your social media can be all about promoting. So say it's on Wednesday, your weekly moment, you're going to launch your podcast on Wednesday. Monday, Tuesday, we can be doing teasers to be able to tell people about the thing on Wednesday. They hit the podcast on Wednesday. Thursday, Friday, we can be following up to be able to see what people are doing, getting comments, sending out swipe files, etc. For example, for my event, I did an event on having a dashboard, a CEO dashboard in your business.
I thought that was really interesting.
And so on Monday, I did a poll to say to people, have you got a dashboard in your business? So loads of people voting about polls. So I'm kind of creating my own audience on a Monday because people are voting about having a dashboard. Then on Tuesday, I promote the fact that I've got the event coming up tomorrow. So I go, hey, you've got an event coming up. You should all register for it. It's going to happen on Wednesday. I quite like doing them quite close when you're doing online events, right? And I also then can DM all the people that voted to say, hey, thanks for your vote. Got this event on Wednesday. So I'm building this audience Monday, Tuesday. People come to my event on CEO Dashboard. And then I say, hey, I've got this special AI that I built, this custom AI that helps you not just have the swipe file of the dashboard, but also helps you to be able to build the dashboard. So people love that. But then on Thursday, I do Who Wants the Replay? So if you missed it, here, if you write the word dashboard underneath, we will send you the replay, the swipe file, the AI tool. And then on Thursday, we're just getting, not only did we get 100 odd people registering for the event, we got over 280 people, more people requesting the dashboard on the replay on the Thursday, which if I didn't do that on a Thursday, I would have just had the good result on a Wednesday.
Yeah, you missed it.
And then Friday is a key one. So Friday, we call it Share a Win Friday, right? And so you've just told people about, so the awareness piece is you're kind of, getting people connected with you. The consideration is that you've gone and said, right, we're going to actually talk about this dashboard stuff. And they're like, oh, I really like what you say about that. Friday, share a win from your client. Case study Friday, case study testimonial, video testimonial from someone. Because what that says is it actually tells people that you do this and you can help people with this. And so although they saw you talking about it, that shows people how they can buy you, which is important to link back, because otherwise you become an entertainer, a content creator, a producer, etc. So by having that case study kind of links all that together. And so the important thing we talk about is that have a 13-week cycle. So if you're thinking about your content calendar for a year, just do the same 13 themes 4 times a year. So take your subject like an orange, unpeel it into 13 different segments. They're your topics. They're your weekly topics for 13 weeks. So if one of my weeks will be CEO Dashboard. I talk about LinkedIn newsletters as one of my weeks. I talk about doing your LinkedIn profile, because a lot of my stuff is the LinkedIn based. That's our focal point for a lot of our content. And so there are themes for the week. So it means that once I know that, I can have 13 different polls on a Monday that are linked to the theme. So once I've got my 13 polls and my 13 themes, I never have to worry about Mondays again, because next quarter, because why 13? Because 52 weeks divided by 4 quarters is 13 weeks.
Yes.
So next quarter, I'm just going to use the same 13 polls again. Because I can't even remember what I had for breakfast, let alone what
I thought you didn't do breakfast. You said earlier you did intermittent fasting. Come on.
I can't remember it.
You didn't have breakfast.
I certainly can't remember what you posted 14 weeks ago on a Monday.
I can't remember what I posted on Monday, if I'm totally honest with you. It's like,
So the repetition will never kind of get found. But what
do you think that's a limiting belief people have, though? Because
100%.
People often say to me, oh, yeah, if I post the same stuff again, my audience is just going to fatigue of it. They're going to get bored of it, right?
Yeah. So you shouldn't post the same article probably or newsletter. I'd say keep that fresh. So when you're talking about your weekly moment, I personally think, so although I'll do a session in 13 weeks time around the CEO dashboard, the way I present it, maybe the way the slides look, etc., will be different. You never say the same thing again twice, right? Whereas if it was me just copying and pasting a newsletter to go out again, then that wouldn't work. So think about your weekly moment as being your unique piece of content each week, but your Monday poll can be the same. And ideally, if I could get a dash on Friday for my share a win, if my case study could reference how the dashboard was one of the things that helped the client win.
It's a nice story.
Then I have 13 case studies.
Nice.
I never need another case study. If someone's going to buy from me, they're not going to consume 13 case studies. So I don't need any more than that. So I can have 13 polls, 13 case studies. I never worry about Friday again. I never worry about Monday again. And then you go, well, my weekly moment's on a Wednesday. So Tuesday's just going to promote it. So the promo post can be the same because we always know it's the same. So that's great. I do my then weekly moment. And then the replay is just me then going, who wants the replay of the stuff? Yeah. So again, all I'm doing now is I'm just rocking up to on a Wednesday. And of course, my team will do all of this, of course. Because, once you write it and sign it all off, then they're posting and doing all the DMing and the rest of it. I rock up on a Wednesday to my LinkedIn for Breakfast event, which is my 9 o'clock every Wednesday morning. I do my free event.
Typically, how many people are you getting on that?
So we get 60 to 70 people every single week turn up to that. You get about 100 to 150 people register.
That's a really good show up rate, though.
Yeah, it's good because they're regular, because it's not like a pitch event, right? What I hate is someone go, do you want to come to a webinar? And then you sit there hearing about their life story, and then they try to sell you something, and there was actually no value there.
Yeah,
go, well,
me too. I hate that. I hate that. Especially at live events, I really hate that when people do that. It's like, hey, buy this really cheap ticket, come along, and then let me pitch you for 2 days. And it's like, I hate that. We don't do that with our events.
No.
We lead with value. We've always led with value. And then, if you love the coaching and you want help growing, great. We've been doing this for 20 years. We've got enough people you can meet. And I also think live interaction with happy clients who've got results is actually one of the best forms of testimonials on the planet, right?
Exactly. And they tend to last too long, these webinars as well. Like so our events are 45 minutes. So I love if you want a tip here, if you're going to do a weekly moment, but as an event. So it doesn't have to be, because it could be podcasts, etc. So they have different things. But if you're going to do it as an event, and it's going to be a weekly event, you're going to do a different topic each time. Do it as 15 minutes, because the first 5 minutes is going to be like, hi, how you doing, everybody? Get everybody in. Best thing to do in that first 5 minutes. Okay, the topic's going to be this today. What's your thoughts about that? Have you done that? So the thing that I said about the CEO dashboard was, do you have a dashboard? Do you track your numbers? Say in the comments. So everybody's sort of commenting and talking there. So I'm getting the interaction going.
Yep. Rapport, that builds rapport too.
Exactly.
Right.
And people are taking action. And then I do my 20 minutes of content there, so that gets me up to 25 minutes, and the second 20 minutes left to make it up to 45, we go into Q&A, because my thesis is, when I call them to action to say, hey, do you want to go and book on to have a one-to-one with us to discuss your CEO dashboard? So you go one-to-many to then offer them one-to-one, which is then the upsell into the sales meeting. People who have just taken action in the meeting are going to take action when you call them to action.
Yeah.
So if I got them commenting in the chat, if I got them asking questions, then I go, and now you can have a bit more one-on-one time, then they're going to take it. They're going to bite your arm off about it. And so don't just go, do you want to go and have a meeting with me so I can sell you some stuff? We go, so my thing's called LinkedIn for Breakfast. So we do one-to-many, we give LinkedIn
Which we'll link
tips
in the comments below for people who want to
awesome
join up for that, right? And I highly recommend it, by the way. So yeah, it's valuable training, actually, right?
Yeah, so it's just trying to make it the best place on earth to learn LinkedIn for free. That's the idea. So our mantra behind that, make it amazing to learn LinkedIn for free, right? And so we constantly give stuff. So we do that one-to-many, and then we offer one-to-one a free LinkedIn profile audit.
Right.
So we will go on a one-to-one with you for half an hour, 45 minutes, and we will go and look at your LinkedIn profile. We'll give you a load of practical tips on how that can improve. And then at the end of it, they can take it away and go do it themselves. No problem at all. The recording's there. They can use all our resources. Or if they want a VA that's going to cost them like £5 an hour, then
they can get help.
One of our VAs. Yeah. They're all trained on all this stuff, and so it's like a no-brainer. And I feel that's the thing that everybody gets so messed up in marketing, is that you want to go for one audience to build awareness. You want to build consideration to be able to talk about your subject. You want to make a no-brainer for a one-to-one. Don't make it a sales meeting. Make it like a continuation of the value.
Of the conversation. It should just be a continuation of the conversation, shouldn't it? But I often think people get messed up with the whole idea of making irresistible offers.
Exactly.
Most people's offers are down the track. Also, most people's offers are resistible because they're not very compelling. Or we'll give you 10% off this or that. It's like it's not a solving a problem. The offer should solve the problem. I mean, I remember years ago Dan Kennedy saying it was one of the best tips I learned from going over to spend time with him. He was like, your bonuses should be so good that people want to buy the product just for the bonuses, which I thought was interesting. And secondly, the bonuses should overcome objections. So work out what the 5 objections are and then give bonuses to overcome all of the objections that people go, wow, those bonuses are so good. I actually will buy the product just because I want the bonuses as much as anything. And I'm like, there's that building desire, isn't there? That again, it's a skill set that you don't realize you need when you start out as an entrepreneur, because nobody explains to you, by the way, you're going to need to learn how to make offers. You're going to need to learn how to raise awareness. You're going to need to learn how to use tools like LinkedIn. Nobody really explains that to you. And then you suddenly realize actually, I haven't got enough leads and I can't feed my family this month. I need to figure this out, right?
Yeah.
What do you think most... Hang on a second, I need to ask you something, Craig. Like, what are most people getting wrong about LinkedIn? Give me the 2 minutes.
So most people aren't posting frequently enough.
Okay.
So that's huge. So every single day you should post. Massively important, because that consistency actually helps to drive the algorithm.
Yep.
Super, super important. Also, most people don't realize that only the first 3 lines and the picture is all you've got to get someone to click that little see more button.
Yeah.
Because that's the most important piece. And actually, if you do a sentence that goes slightly over one line, and so it goes into 2, if you then leave a gap, then you won't even see the 3rd line.
No.
So you've got to, so whenever I create a load of custom AIs that our team use, and I will always be really stringent on those first 3 lines.
Hooks.
To make sure it's like a newspaper article to get them in. So the image has got to be important.
Yep.
The amount of people that might put a video up on LinkedIn and the opening style is like a black piece of it's just black with a little play button because it hasn't quite kicked into the video.
Yep. That's bad editing, though, to be fair. If you haven't got a decent editor who understands you're putting it on social, and secondly, you can obviously on LinkedIn as well, you can do this. You can put a screenshot in front of it.
Thumbnail,
a thumbnail, and the thumbnail should be the thing that gets the attention, right? Like that's the thing to get the click.
And you've got to do, and a selfie does really well on LinkedIn because people are buying people. The first few lines are super important, so that is vital. And getting up to there, I've had in terms of views on my content in the last 6 months, I've had 1.2 million views on my content. So we know what works, right? And it's very much around that. The other thing that's working really nicely is making sure that you build some current affairs stuff into your posting content. So this is what's working super well, because you need to create debate, to create engagement, to create reach, right? And so there is so many gifts that the government is giving us at the moment.
Is that newsjacking? Is that called newsjacking? Or?
Yeah, it could be. There's loads of. Basically, you want to be able to just be topical, because the problem with the 13-week cycle is people get into this cycle and they'll just rinse and repeat and not really think about it. And actually, you want to still look at things that relate to your business and try and use that to get big spikes, and then you ride the wave of that spike.
Right.
And so, for example, when the Labour cabinet had a reshuffle, I went out to all my clients who are in leadership and just said, look, there's been a big front bench reshuffle here. It's hitting some newspapers. People have got some opinions on this stuff. Why don't you tell them your opinion on how this is good, bad, indifferent for leadership, and actually give your leadership slant on what Labour should be doing with their shuffle, right? And so that's a really gift of a thing to be able to talk about. My accountants at the moment, I'm saying this upcoming budget is like manna from heaven for you guys, because there is so much that the business community is worried about, needs to know about, is uneducated about. If you are not being the person that's riding that, like you might be doing a 13-week cycle, but for the week of the budget, cancel the whole lot.
Yeah.
You're talking just about that, and do a special event just about that, and because you know when it is going to be, just know in your content calendar, just start to prepare for it now and start telling people about it and start booking in a meeting.
But that's being strategic, isn't it? Don't you think with your marketing? I don't think. I've got a client who sold his accountancy practice last year, but he would make about £450,000 a year off LinkedIn. All organic. So when people say I don't have money for marketing or I don't have the time, I'm like, my point is always, what are you doing between 8 and 8:30 every morning that's making you 100,000 a year?
Yeah.
And everyone looks at me like, well, I'm not really doing anything, or I'm having breakfast. I'm like, right. So we're just talking about extra £100,000 a year minimum for half an hour a day.
Yeah.
There's one of my favorite quotes I heard, and I'd love to attribute it to the person that I saw this on, but I loved it, which is discipline beats dopamine.
Yeah.
Which I just thought was a brilliant quote, because I think so many entrepreneurs are chasing the dopamine. It's like, right, I need to get the dopamine high. And actually, discipline beats dopamine. And I've like, that's laminated in my brain now, because I'm like, every time you go, I'm trying to chase dopamine. No, go back to discipline. It's like, look, if you can't do half an hour a day to build your LinkedIn profile, how in the world do you expect to be successful at anything else? Like, if you cannot do that, if that bar is too high for you to get over, to spend half an hour outreaching, connecting, working with somebody, whatever, like if you can't do that, you can't get serious about growing a personal brand, building a grown-up business, or creating value in something that will be exitable. Like, don't even think that that's going to happen if you can't do this.
Exactly.
If you can't get over that, like, because if that's hard now, when you actually have to do the hard stuff later,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like
exactly. I think it's so true that you just got to get into a rhythm with all of this stuff and think about it from when we think about the process. So for example, this kind of weekly social media process that you might be going out for content wise, you still want to be able to just, you can outsource, but don't abdicate your
outsource, don't abdicate. You're dead right.
Because when those opportunities come around for you to actually get opinionated on something and to get angry about something, or to just tell the world your opinion, don't hold back. Don't pull your punches just because it's social media. People buy you, right? And yes, all right, some of your opinions might be more enticing to other people than some people, but by getting a big spike of engagement, getting people in, everything else then benefits off that, because LinkedIn works a little bit like an alley-oop in basketball, right? So yesterday's post that you've teed up, if you can go slam it down with another great post, like a slam dunk. So an alley-oop is where you put it up in the air, the next person comes and slams down. So yesterday's reach is as good as it will make a massive impact on how good today's reach is. And so if you're trying to do something like a promote an event or something, if you could work, that's why we do the poll on Monday to get people voting, because that is the alley, and then on Tuesday we promote the event. So that's the slam dunk, because you're then getting people engaging, and then bam, they go register for an event, they become a lead. So when we kind of go engagement into consideration, alley, with the slam dunk, with the event actually being where they've signed up, they've joined your email list, they can be then prospected and put into a one-to-one and be sold, right? And so that's so important to think about. You need these, even if it's slightly abstract and not quite engagement focused, you still need these big engagement creators, because that's how your account will really start to take off.
I love that. I think with all of this though, it's about having a systems mindset to it, correct?
Yeah.
Like marketing actually is maths at its core. And if you can figure out how much you can afford to spend to acquire a customer, most people don't know those numbers or what a customer is worth. If you can't afford cash because you're underfunded, then you have to afford time. But it's amazing how many people get frustrated because the marketing isn't working, and you go, I would say, well, show me your diary then, and I'll show you what's important in your life, and let's look in your business and look in your diary, go, right, how much time is in your diary for marketing, and how much is committed in there to doing that? And like very few people have much in their diary at all, if anywhere, committed to marketing. And the people who win are the people who go, right, actually building my list, building my network, creating offers and creating engagement opportunities and presentation opportunities. Actually, that's my job as an owner, as an investor in this business, which I'm investing my time, energy and money into. That's the thing I should be focusing on doing, not operationally becoming excellent at running the thing. It's why I'm so passionate about the job title CEO, because CEO for me stands for creating expansion opportunities. That's what you should spend your life doing. If you're not doing that, you're just becoming an operator, and you're not CEO. And
it's so important that if you know what those figures are. So we did a project ahead of planning a little while ago, and so I can tell you in 3 years' time how many leads I need a week. So because I've worked out, well, I need this many leads to make that many bookings, I need that many bookings to make that many sales, I need that many sales to be able to hit my revenue, because I know what my average order size is, I know what my client lifetime value is, I know what my churn rate is, and all I have to do is just keep all the numbers the same, and then just increase leads, and then make sure I'm building team at the same time. So my telephone appointment setting head of team knows that her team's going to be 9 people in 2027. And my closing guy knows that his team's going to be 5 people in 2027. And so he now knows which quarter he's got to recruit the closers, and she knows when she's got to recruit her setters. And that's it, planned. And now I target them both against this. They're going to have remuneration against this. And now it's like, right. And then who's going to be managing that sales team? Right. You're in charge of that. Like I'm like, oh,
but that's a level of certainty, isn't it? That gives you as the entrepreneur a level of certainty.
Yeah.
And it gives you a level of confidence in the future, because you know what the future looks like. Most people who are running around putting out fires, it's because they haven't even built that. And they're recruiting retrospectively when somebody quits or they have a problem, and now they're recruiting under pressure rather than recruiting to a plan. I mean, there's no way you have scaled to 150 plus people without incredibly good recruitment systems.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And you just can't do it otherwise. And it all, if anyone wants to know where to start, well, it all starts at lead generation, because that, if you've got leads, then you can get appointments. If you've got appointments, you can get sales. You've got sales, you've got a business. So just, anybody says, well, I'm not quite sure my offer is. Well, are you showing that offer to anyone at the moment? No. So it doesn't matter. Get some leads. Like, that's the whole point.
Yeah, stop worrying about how good your offer is and figure out how to get some leads.
Generation,
Yeah.
right? And if you think, well, I'm probably getting some, well, what's probably? Like, what's the numbers, right? How many per week are you getting? All right, great.
Act on fact.
Exactly.
That's honestly, I always say to people, data drives decisions.
Yeah.
And if you ask most business owners, they are not collecting anywhere near enough data to really know what the heck's going on in their business.
Yeah.
It's not.
And with the power of one piece, don't think, oh, I'm getting some leads here, so I need more. Richard says I need more leads. Okay, great. So I need to go dance the funky chicken on TikTok, and then I got to go and go some highbrow.
Unless you're a chicken restaurant, that's not going to work. If you are a chicken restaurant, that might be perfect.
Then TikTok's your power of one, right? That's your focal point. So I don't think you need to be. I think you can be on all social media channels, but I think if you should really invest time and energy in one until you can hand it over to someone in your team so it becomes their one thing, and then you can invest time and energy in the other and then hand over that.
That's nice. I like the idea of making it one thing and then handing it over for someone else to
leave
be
someone
their
behind
thing.
And it's their responsible. So you work the system, you get it to predictable, you know how many leads you're expecting per month, and you are then target them to increase that over a period of time. You then leave them behind, they're responsible. And if they don't hit that, then you change the person. You might have to put your cape back on and go save the day in that social media channel again and go start doing it yourself, learn out what's going on. Has the algorithm changed? Has it been something along those lines? Which does happen. Then you jump back in again. I had Facebook ads is a great one for us. So LinkedIn is my place that, we're showing up and we're really focusing on. I have been running the same Facebook ad for about 2.5 years, just putting people into a 5-day LinkedIn challenge. Been running these ads. The algorithm is really great on Facebook ads. It's kind of got better. My cost per lead has come down, and I've done nothing.
It's good at finding. It's good at finding. Its AI tool is actually brilliant at finding you ideal customer fits. Exactly. It is actually very, very good. I've got a couple of clients who didn't think it was good and then tested it, and they're like, this is absolutely brilliant. And they've had the same thing, cost of acquisition just dropping. It's because I left Fago behind, and he is now managing my Facebook ads. He's making sure he's tweaking the creative and stuff, and I barely even look at what's happening there anymore, because it's just delivering. Happy days, right? It's delivering, and my focus is on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is delivering really great. And do I do much YouTube? Not really. Do I do much other stuff? Not really. But do I want to? Yeah, at some point when I feel that I can leave LinkedIn to be LinkedIn and because we teach LinkedIn, I kind of keeping my oar in there at the moment. So I'm almost allowing myself not to move across, but I probably could leave it and leave it down to Ugo to be able to manage it. Ultimately, Ugo is the person that is there who's managing it, right? So it's just, it just means, and so here's the beauty of it, by being able to have outsourced offshore teams, I can very easily and inexpensively have people who are in charge of that one platform, and they can have an abundance of time to be able to make sure that platform delivers the leads that I need, versus having to have that one marketing person who is, going to be costing me 30 grand a year, who's going to be working on all of these things. And they're not a combi tool. People aren't combi tools. You pick a young person out of university and employ them. They may never have used LinkedIn before. Just because they're young doesn't mean that they're going to be good at it. The young, I had this debate with somebody the other day, and they were saying, the youth don't see LinkedIn as a particularly important platform. And I'm like, well, they're massively missing out on an opportunity. So where can people, if they want to take the 5-day challenge, obviously we'll drop the link, I'm sure, below in the comments or around here in the notes, but where do they go? Do you know the URL for that?
So the best thing to do is just go onto linkedinforbreakfast.com.
Right.
And so that's our thing. If you just type in LinkedIn for Breakfast, that is us.
Great.
And so we've got a free school community with the 5-day challenge in there. We've got another 5-day challenge about going live on LinkedIn. We've got an abundance of free courses. We are trying to make it the best place on earth to learn LinkedIn for free. So
nice.
if you're even slightly LinkedIn curious, jump into there.
Love that. Yeah. I mean, but that's a great mission, isn't it? To go, right, okay, actually, that's a real mission to go, we want to make best place for LinkedIn for free.
And I say this to clients, that I say your consideration piece. So you're building awareness. You want to siphon people into your consideration world, right? So we talked about this. This is where they start to know that you're good at something. Make the thing wrap it. So our weekly event is LinkedIn Breakfast, and then we've wrapped in the community LinkedIn Breakfast, and our mission is to make it the best place in the world to make LinkedIn for free. So user person who's watching this, what are you trying to make the best place on earth to learn ... for free?
Right.
Because I can guarantee you now, if people are jumping in there and going, wow, you should be charging for that, that's the bit that you go, well done. You go, no, I'm not going to charge this because this is the best place on earth to learn this for free. But here's the thing. People learn, do not. They don't do, right? They don't get it done. And so then you go, well, actually, you've got the ideas, but I think this is accountability. I always think that there's sort of 5 reasons why people buy like a coaching thing. It's around leadership, route. So the leaderships, they need to find a leader. So they want to have some inspirations from a leader. There's also routine. So they need to frequently come back to it. So I go from sporadically trying to learn about this stuff to consistently turning up and seeing it. And then there's community. So I go from not everybody else who's kind of dealing with this stuff to, I found my people who are also kind of do this same mission together.
Yep.
And then there's the thing that locks it all in, which is accountability, right? So you've got to hold them accountable to seeing you as a leader, to showing up, to being a good community member. Oh, and sorry, the fourth one, I missed one. Personalization, right? So there is so much.
So that's the fifth one.
That's the fourth one is personalization. The fifth one is accountability that holds it all together, because it's accountable to ask questions and get your questions answered. Accountability to showing up, accountability to see someone as a leader's accountability to make it part of your routine, right? So the accountability is the thing that locks in. So there is so much information in the world that you can go and consume on LinkedIn or YouTube, but how does that apply specifically to you? And that's the personalization piece. So that's why someone buys a program. If you go and create an online course and community, great, that answers a few of them. So there's a bit of leadership, a little bit of your how-tos, but they don't get any of my time to be able to ask specific questions, get it personalized. They're not being held accountable. They can just keep on consuming free, but nobody's saying, well, you haven't done anything yet.
Yeah.
And that's why someone would go buy a coaching product. So if I was just selling coaching, they would buy for the accountability and the practical application and the access to me. But we've also thrown in and we'll just do it all for you because,
I think that's a nice removal of that objection. There's a reason, when we started saying, look, come for the coaching, stay for the community, it was sort of a bit of a kind of like, we're trying to explain the fact that the community is really high value and they do actually hold each other to a higher standard. And now people are going, I've actually had 2 or 3 calls with clients who said, look, I get you can coach me to scale my business and get me exit ready. I get that. I need to know who's in the community, what kind of people, because I'm looking for a community. And I think that's a real shift lately, because I think being an entrepreneur is an isolated, lonely existence and people are looking for communities. I think, especially with AI and where that's taking everything, I think people who can build communities around an idea, like you're talking about, are going to do incredibly well over the next 2, 3, 4 years. So look, we've covered a lot of ground. It's been awesome. So my head's spinning with so many good ideas. What's your definition though? You built multiple businesses, exited 3, you're scaling incredibly fast with the one you're on right now. What's your definition of a grown-up business?
I think I'm only just getting to a position where I feel this way, and actually it's been really interesting because I haven't felt grown up growing any of my businesses. I came out of university and set up a business straight away, so I've never been a grown up business owner. Like that's what I felt. Now I'm feeling a little bit older, very, very old. I for the first time have got a set of managers who have reports, and they come to me and they put together this CEO dashboard, and I look at these numbers, and we do it 8:45 every Tuesday, and I go and look at this, go, how the hell has this happened to me? Like, these guys are brilliant. They're reporting on these numbers. They're over time. We already hit Q2's target for next year. Like, it's
wow.
We need to do something with these targets. But these are already pre-tweaked targets as well. So I need to do a serious reassessment on it. And I just think these guys are mega, and we've got to hold on to this kind of team and keep on working on them. And I just feel a grown-up business is a business that you're no longer firefighting. It's just working, and it's about people and teamwork and strategic conversations. And yeah, I haven't had that before, and I feel, I don't know, it feels nice and relaxed. I feel
calm.
Yeah, I feel relaxed. Like,
you can sense it.
And I never was. And maybe the second I got close to growing up business with my agency, I then opened up another 4. And that was the problem, because then I had a load of juveniles that I'm dealing with. It's like having a baby later in life. I imagine that you go from being kind of, your kids are kind of looking after themselves and feeding themselves, and suddenly you've got this sort of crying little bundle of joy that you've got to then work on, and you're like, oh, back to here again.
It's fine in your 20s, but it goes back to your apprentice thing. It's fine in your 20s and your 30s and stuff to do that, but if you're in your 40s and 50s, you don't really want to go down that again. And I think there's a level of maturity you start to realise that, like you say, the power of one, focus on, make the main thing, which is what I say to our clients a lot. It's like your job is to make the main thing. And I think too many of us have, there's a great thing on the social media, everyone saying, oh, you need to diversify. And I'm like, no, you don't. You need to focus, because until you're worth 10 million, you really don't even need to worry about diversification, frankly. You need to worry about optimization, and you need to be focused on one thing and making it massive, because you're not going to have the ability to have resources to diversify unless you do that. So stop worrying about multiple streams of income and focus on building one incredibly focused, really clear value proposition that the market's, they're hungry for. Find that hungry market, right?
Yeah.
And then just go all in.
Yep.
And just go all in on it.
Yeah. The dashboard will set you free.
I love that. I love that.
Really will. The numbers of what set you free. A dashboard is, because your name will be against, kind of E-Myth type thing. Your name is on every single one of those.
Love it.
Until you unpeel yourself, and a dashboard frees you as a business owner.
I think that's the great place to finish. Richard, obviously, thank you so much for coming on the show. We'll drop a link to you. Everyone should definitely follow you on LinkedIn as well, and on your YouTube channel as well. We'll drop links to those as well. Thank you for coming on the Grown Up Business Podcast today and sharing your insights on what it takes to really scale a business. I'm excited for you to come back in maybe another year and give us an update on where the business is at, because if you can go from like 0 to 150 a year, I'm super excited to see what you can do over the next couple of years. And just keep doing what you're doing, man, and helping people, because I think what you're also doing, which I love, is that you're helping free entrepreneurs from the people bottleneck, which I think is such a problem when you're trying to scale it. So super excited for what you're doing, and really it's a privilege to have you in our community as well, man. So thanks for coming on the show.
Love it. Thank you very much.
That concludes this episode of the Grown Up Business Podcast. I hope that got you fired up and ready to grow. The key thing, though, is to remember you get paid on what you get done. So write down the top 3 actions from the show and make sure that you implement those in the next 72 hours. Hey, and while you're at it, make sure you click the links and the resources below this episode to claim free growth resources to help you build the business you desire and deserve. I'll see you on the next episode.